All right, good evening. The time being 7 p.m. on March 30th, 2020. Quorum of the planning board being present, I call this meeting to order. All right, so first off, as everybody who's on the call or maybe watching this at home can see that we're doing this a little different than normal. We're doing this remotely as a result of the social distancing requirements, but in an effort to try and continue to do the matters that we need to take care of in the most orderly way that we can, so that things don't get backed up. So this first meeting, we're doing it, we're trying to keep the agenda as light as possible in an attempt to give it a try, make sure that we are able to do what we need to do. I guess one of the first things I'd ask is that anyone who's not immediately about to speak, if you could mute your microphones. That way we cut down on the background noise and we're less likely to accidentally switch to someone else's screen while we're doing each agenda item. We have a call-in number that's been posted that can be found on the live broadcast as well as several other sites. The telephone number is 978-640-4370. Then the extension is 209. For anyone who's going to call in on any of the public matters, once we have people calling in, they'll be queued up and waiting for their chance to speak. I believe the queue is for up to 3 people. So if you can't get through, once we go through someone who does speak and someone drops off, then you should be able to be added to the queue. But I think the limit is 3 at a time. So that may back up at the beginning until we actually start speaking to people. So just because you aren't able to get through doesn't mean you won't be. We'll try to go and give enough time for everyone to speak and get on the phone if they need to before we move on a matter. So, the only other housekeeping matter that I'd like to just mention is that, our thoughts are with Mr. Delaney, that he gets better soon. He's able to join us on our next meeting, hopefully. But obviously, he will not be able to be there tonight. All the other members of the planning board are present for our meeting. So with that, I'll start with the first item on the agenda, which is agenda item A, approval of minutes from March 9th, 2020.
So, Mr. Chairman, Vin Fratalia here. I can make a motion to approve the minutes of March 30th, March 9th, 2020.
All right, I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a second from Mr. Fowler. All those members in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. When we get to any of the other items, the only other thing is I'm gonna probably poll the members. That way we know which members voting how, and that way we don't just get drowned out with ayes and nays. For these items, it's not as important. But once you get to the public hearings, that's how I'm going to do it. That's all right with everybody. So moving on to agenda item B, we have committee reports, administrative action. Are there any committee reports any members would like to make at this time?
None.
All right, hearing none.
No other ring is frozen.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item B2, which is a concept plan review for 181 Pine Street, OSRD. We have the petitioner for, well, not petitioner yet, but the presenter for 181 Pine Street.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Matt Hammer with Lamplex Engineering and Surveying here on behalf of 181 Pine Street. And thank you for getting this all together. I know it's been a lot of work for everybody. So let me know if I need to slow down or what process you want to take to review this.
All right, the floor is yours.
So, again, I represent Pine and Whipple LLC for the development of Lot 3 and Lot 4, which is adjacent to 181 Pine Street. Collectively, the property is 4.2 acres. There's frontage off of Whipple Road. There's frontage off of Pine Street. And there's an existing dwelling at 181 Pine Street. We're here before the board in order to do propose a open space residential development. And in the process for section 7500 of the zoning bylaw, it calls for a review with the planning board under the normal business hours. So this is the beginning stages of this process. We have met informally with Stephen Sadwick and Anna McGinty to briefly review the project. And now we're here before the board to go over the proposed development and to get feedback from the board before moving forward with a formal application. I'm also here with Jim Mandela is next to me, keeping his social distance of 6 feet. And he's going to speak for this. I'll just turn the screen to Mr. Mandela. Again, the total parcel is 4.82 acres. 0.88 acres consists of wetlands, which are in the rear of the property. And there's 3.79 acres of contiguous upland. There's an adjacent electric easement along Whipple Road to the west. And the majority of the area for development will be on the easterly portion of the property. I've submitted a plan to the board. I don't know if the board has a copy of that plan in front of them, or whether you want me to upload a plan to the screen.
This is Bob Fowler. I have mine.
Okay, great.
Ben Fratalia has his.
Eric Ryder has his.
I have mine as well.
Great. So the plan is colored. The mustard colored in the rear is the wetland area. The green is going to be the residential open space area development. And the road is going to come in off of Pine Street. If you look on the right-hand side of the plan, there's an open space residential development determination of yield formula. And in that formula, when you take the total area in the wetland area and enter those quantities into the formula that's outlined in the zoning bylaw, we come up to a yield of 4 lots. If you recall, the yield goes either above a half or below, and ours is at 3.9, so we round to the 4 lots. So with the 4 lots as the basic number, the maximum amount of lots per the determination of yield formula, we are proposing 4 lots with an access of a drive coming in off of 9th Street. That drive is 300 lineal feet long, the roadway. And each of the lots range from 17,500 square feet to 24,000 square feet in lot size. All the lots would have to be greater than 10,000 square feet. And all of these lots greatly exceed that. The other thing to know is that you also have to have greater than 50 lineal feet of frontage for each of the lots. And all of these lots have greater than that 50 lineal feet of frontage. Additionally, all of the lots, with exception of 4, there's a tiny portion of 4 has a small portion of wetland on lot 4. but all the lots are essentially contiguous upland. Additionally, there's an open space parcel that's shown on the lot, and that is shown as parcel 3A-1. And we're here to get some feedback from the planning board on this plan and the determination of the development itself as part of the pre-application phase of this project. I can
All
put
right.
any questions from the board.
All right, very good. We'll start with Mr. Fratalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my first question is, how much access do you have on Whipple Road?
Whipple Road has 235 feet of access off of Whipple Road.
And that is all open space, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And 4 house lots, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any affordable component?
No.
All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fowler, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I have is the radius for the new road out to Pine Street on the road as you're looking at it on the plan. I'm not sure how that's going to meet without going over the Kelly's lot.
Yeah, we've, you're talking about the actual pavement radius?
Yes,
Yeah, we've.
the right away in pavement.
I'm sorry.
The right away.
Yes, we won't be able to achieve a right-of-way radius on either side,
Right.
but the pavement radius will terminate not beyond the frontage of the adjacent lot, which is the Hopkinson lot at 171 Pine Street.
Okay, I can see how you can do that on that side, but I'm not quite sure I see it on the Kelly's property. But if you think you can do it, that's fine.
Yeah, if you notice on the plan, the darkened radius does terminate before it gets to the Kelly property.
Well, you started the conversation with if we had a plan, and yes, we have plans, but they're black and white. And you started talking about a colored plan. So I didn't receive a colored plan.
Oh, sorry about that.
Which is no problem. Which is no problem.
Mr. Fowler, do you have anything else?
Nope, I'm all set.
All right. Mr. Ryder.
Thank you. Mr. Fratalia and the Fowler answered, asked and my questions answered, so I'm good for right now. Thank you.
All right. This is the chairman, and my turn. The only thing, and I'm going to kind of ask this with the other board members. I know in the OSRD, I know the requirements are different than sort of how we've been treating it with the affordable stuff. I'm just curious how everybody else feels about that. Anyone?
You mean, this is Eric. Obviously, always like an affordable component of any development.
Well, I guess what I meant was more in terms of, I know that I believe that we had said before that even the zones that
We lost you, Stephen.
Here we go.
We're going to get good there for a while.
The virus hit the screen. Who has the floor?
Who's the vice chair?
That would be Mr. Fowler.
Why? What happened?
We lost.
Oh, okay. Do we have an answer to that question?
Hey, Bob. Bob, it's Steve Sedgwick. I would recommend that we temporarily just go into a recess until the chairman comes back online. So no one needs to jump off right now. You may want to put everything on mute. And then when Steve comes back on, then we can continue with the meeting.
Okay.
Sounds
All right.
good.
But don't go away. Just mute yourself.
Yeah, right. Bye. Move.
My apologies, I'm back. I will presume we kept going with my absence?
No.
Oh, we did
Negative.
not. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so my apologies. I have no idea what happened. If for some reason that were to happen again, I would say, Mr. Fowler, please just take over and I will get back on as quickly as possible.
Okay.
And I'll make one other note that I just noticed because I've got the TV on in the background. There's about a 10-second delay between what we're doing and what people are seeing on TV. So when we get to the part where people are speaking on any public matters, we'll just take that into account and ask those people to make sure that they mute their TVs because their TVs are going to be about 10 seconds behind what's actually going on. So back to my comment on the concept plan. It was just, on the affordable part, I just recalled that I thought we were sort of requiring that regardless of what was in the bylaw on any zone, regardless. Knowing also that the new zoning bylaw, when it comes up, is going to have that in it anyway. Am I mistaken in that, or?
I had thought, Stephen, we had a similar issue up on what road? Up Astle Road, correct? Do we have a 4-unit development that we requested one affordable?
Correct.
We actually condensed to 3, so there was no affordable requirement.
Right, but that was a density issue, meaning they got themselves below the number where it was going to be
Right,
required.
okay, yeah. That's
But
right.
what I meant was more along the lines of, what we had told everybody. I know there was one other one where, we didn't do it because we hadn't mentioned it during the, when they brought it in, in this case, like for concept, we sent them out having never said anything, and then we brought it up during the hearing, which seemed too late in the game. So I'm just trying to recall how we wanted to treat these going forward, knowing that if this was done if the new zoning bylaw would go through, it would have that requirement in there. It's just, this is
Correct.
the one zone, I believe, that does not require it. I thought we had said that we were going to tell anyone when they came in that we were going to require it as part of even this zone. If I'm recalling that wrong, that's fine, but I just want to bring it up because I don't want to get to the hearing and then have it all of a sudden pop up again. That's all.
Could I make a comment?
Yes.
So it was my understanding that, yes, you do have affordable for multi-family dwelling developments themselves. But my understanding is that you took 10% of the 4 units, then you would be only at 0.4, which is below the 0.5 or greater requirement in the section of the bylaw, which is that 7533, the affordable housing requirement section.
Okay, so then we are talking about sort of the Aspen Street thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we clarified it now because I don't want to send people out with with one set of instructions when we do these concepts and then have it be something else when they come in for the formal hearing. That's all. Otherwise, my only questions will be ones that will be answered by, engineering, DPW, once the official submission comes in. So I don't have anything else other than that for the concept plan at this time. So if none of the other members have any other questions or comments, I'm fine with it for now.
Good. I'm all set.
I'm all set.
All right. Anything else that the proponent wants to ask or need clarified at this time?
Just in that, it's my understanding that we would now proceed with preliminary plans and go through the IDR process in order to then go through the 4-step process of the section 7542, which is the design process.
As far as I know, unless someone has other information, everything proceeds the same in terms of submissions. There are some other not requirements, but, with some of the passage of some of the new state laws in answer to the coronavirus stuff, there are some options for potentially pushing off hearings. But that's a different decision to be made at a later date. I don't think it affects how you move forward to get to the submission get through the submission process.
So it would be my understanding then that we would proceed with the definitive subdivision for an open space residential development.
That is my understanding, unless someone has other information.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
To add to them. So they can go ahead and submit an application at this point.
Okay.
Like the normal process.
All
This
right.
is Ann McGinty, town planner speaking.
All right. So yeah, from the submission standpoint, nothing changes.
Does there need to be a vote by the board to proceed forward?
Nope, this is just for feedback.
All right. If there are no other questions or comments, then we're all set with this one.
Okay, great. Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
All right, yeah.
All right. Moving on to agenda item B3, non-substantial change determination, Sutton Brook landfill.
Hi, everyone. This is Rob Bukowski from Wood, representing Sankarfa for the solar project on the landfill that was originally submitted back in 2018. Sorry, I don't have video capabilities to actually see me, but I do have some drawings that I'd like to pull up on the screen here. So Basically the array itself hasn't changed. So this is the solar array proposed. This is the north lobe here, southern lobe, and they call the garage storage area, or the GSA. Access to the site is off South Street. The main changes here are really related to access. The original proposal was to access the site to the north on the existing gravel road. However, the town was not able to get access from the abutter who actually owns that land. So as a result, what we've had to do is revise the road so that instead of access on this existing road, we're proposing a new road right here that goes up the west side of the northern lobe, and then another road here that goes down the eastern side of the northern road. So the array layout remains largely unchanged. The only other modification is in the GSA area here. We have been in correspondence with EPA and Mass DEP, and there are apparently some other pieces of debris and other things that may be in the subsurface here. The original proposal was to bury the electrical conduit, and the foundations were to be either driven or screwed into the ground. We're modifying that so that the foundations will basically match that of the rest of the landfill. So there'll be concrete ballast foundations, and all the work here will be performed above ground.
All right, do you have anything else to add?
No, that covers the changes.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Fowler.
I'm all set.
Mr. Battaglia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions I had is, I haven't been by the site, to tell you the truth, but what is the status presently? Is any work being done at the site now?
No, there's nothing being done at the site.
Okay,
We still need to get all the approvals, including this one tonight.
okay. So how about a potential completion date? And when will we be producing solar?
Well, the original schedule was to have this completed by August of this year. Obviously, with the current pandemic situation, that may change a little bit, but Sincarfa's hope is that we can still get out there, within the next couple of months.
Okay, all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Ryder. We have Mr. Ryder? We do not have Mr. Ryder at the moment, so I will take my turn and we'll come back to Mr. Ryder if he joins. I don't have any specific issue, so as long as the access, basically gets you the same thing you needed before, I don't see any great change in this that's going to cause any problems. And obviously, you'll have different sign-offs that you have to get anyway, so unless someone brings something else up, I don't think there's any reason for us to have an issue with it. Well, I'm all set. Mr. Ryder, have you rejoined?
I'm back. My apologies. I was kicked off for some reason. I don't have anything to say. I don't see any major changes.
All right. Very good. Then with that, unless there's anything else from anyone, or if the proponent has any other questions or comments.
Nope, none from us.
All right. What is the pleasure of the board on the request for a non-substantial change?
Motion to approve the non-substantial change at Sutton Brook landfill.
Second.
Proposed. Yep.
All right. So we have it as proposed. We have a second. All those in favor? Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder? Mr. Battaglia?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye as well. So we have all unanimous approval for the non-substantial change. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to agenda item C. I'm sorry, there was one other housekeeping matter that I really should have, I suppose, mentioned at the beginning for anyone who happens to be watching. There are only 3 matters on the agenda as published that will actually be heard tonight. That's going to be agenda item C, which is 1325 Main Street, agenda item H, which is Burt Road Development, and agenda item K, which is 984, 970, 986 Main Street. That's the center fire station. All other matters on the agenda are going to be continued to a meeting in the future. I believe all are requesting to be continued to our April 13th meeting. So if anybody's tuned in and was concerned about any of the matters we've already started hearing or any matters that we were supposed to open tonight, those will not be heard other than those three that I just listed. Right? So with that, we'll go to agenda item C, which is 1325 Main Street. This is a modification site plan special permit. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
The chair votes aye as well. So unanimous to waive the public reading. So with that, do we have the petitioner?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Scott Erickson. I'm counsel on behalf of the Cerullo family, Cerullo Development LLC, requesting the modification.
All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. A very brief presentation here. I know that the board has a lot of ground to cover in a limited amount of time. The special permit, this is for a site plan special permit that was granted in 2017 to allow our clients to develop a mixed-use condominium project consisting of 3 townhouse-style buildings, 1 mixed-use building. The project in total will contain 21 residential units and 5 commercial units. Of those 21 residential units, 7 are slated to be and will be affordable units. Our clients are extremely motivated to move this project forward. The family has obtained financing and has entered into agreements with contractors, and they're ready to hit the ground running as fast as we can in light of the pandemic. The only issue that stands before us at this time is a condition in the special permit, which reads in part as follows. For this project, the required residential units will be counted, all of the required residential units will be counted as affordable units on the town's subsidized housing inventory as determined by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development. That restriction would require that all of the residential units be rental units. And unfortunately, this project simply is not viable as an all rental project. The idea here is that this is a for sale project with 7 affordable units sold at affordable rates and the remaining units, 21 units, being sold at market rates. This is critical to the project's success in order to recoup the costs of construction and soft costs that have been incurred already. If we do not modify this condition as proposed here, we cannot proceed with the project. It's simply not viable. So we're asking that this board make this change to the permit. It will not result in any reduction in the number of units that will be added to the town's affordable inventory. The 7 units that are going to be added is still 33% of this overall project in terms of the residential units, which is more than double what the town requires under its bylaws when affordability is required in other districts. So we feel that this not only complies with the spirit and the letter of the bylaw, but also is a great project for the town in terms of meaningfully supplementing its existing affordable inventory and allowing this family to move forward with the project.
All right. Mr. Ryder.
All right, thank you. I have a question in regards to why was this in the original approval?
Yep, thank you for that question.
I was not on the board at the time, but there was obviously a reason this was in the original special permit.
Correct, Mr. Ryder. At the time, there was some uncertainty as to whether this would be an all rental project or a for sale project. And now, you know, since this has developed over the last 2 years, it's very clear that in order for this to work, they need to recoup those costs through the sale process. A rental project would necessarily have a much more deferred cash flow element to it, and it just doesn't work from a loan and build out perspective.
Right, but I don't think that was Mr. Ryder's question.
No.
this is really, I think he's directing this to myself, Mr.
Correct.
Fowler, and Mr. Vitalia. I'll start just with, I don't recall having that conversation, to be honest with you, when we had this permit before us. I remember a lot of discussion about a lot of things, but I don't remember needing to make that a restriction in the language of the permit, which we don't typically, I don't know that we've done that to another one like that. So I don't recall that. I don't know if either of the other two members recall any specific discussion like that.
I don't recall anything about that at all.
I don't know that.
That's why I asked. I mean,
Yeah,
we haven't
when I
seen-
read that originally with the submission, I really did feel that I felt like maybe it got in there and someone missed it when we did the review, and the language just sort of stuck from maybe some comment that was made in one of the hearings, maybe, and we just missed it when we reviewed the final permit, and nobody red flagged it. That's my thought. I mean, Mr. Fowler, Mr. Ritalia, do you agree?
I do agree, yeah.
Mr. Fowler?
Likewise, I agree.
All right. So I'm sorry, Mr. Ryder. Continue.
Yes. Also, I know there was some this development was in last year or earlier this year in regards to the affordable units being built. What is the status of that? If this is approved, how is the build out going to go?
The build out, the construction phasing has not been set. This is approved and we filed for building permits, but quite frankly, if we can't get past this hurdle, the project doesn't go forward. So the timing is somewhat fungible, and the idea is to build out the project, I think, all at once, as the market demands.
Okay, I guess the concern that what I had last time that this project was in is the intent was the apartments were going to be built last, and there was some concern of that.
Okay, that is not I don't believe that is the current plan, Mr. Ryder.
All right, Mr. Ryder as well. Again, this is Mr. Johnson. When we had that request in before, I think ultimately what prevented any chance of that being approved was there was no way for us to modify the percentages of completion. I understand that would be still the same. So they'd have to be built within the bylaws percentage of affordable, X number of affordable need to be built or, as the project goes along. If it's all built at the same time, I guess it doesn't matter, but otherwise they're going to have to build it within the percentages that the bylaw calls for.
Okay, and I just raised that concern because I know in the past with this development.
Certainly.
Okay, that's all I have for now, Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fratalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in favor of this development. We are going to be getting 7 affordable units, which is a good number for us. Biggest questions I think we had in the past was the prior project when it came in front of us had problems with financing. They couldn't get the financing squared away to proceed forward. So has that been resolved?
It has. It was actually, we've closed on that loan just last month.
Okay. So we're looking at 5 retail units, right, in that last building with 7 affordable units above it, correct? Rentals, right?
That is correct.
The rest of the units are going to be condos for sale, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I made this point when this first came about, that just be aware that we're not looking to build this development or approve this development in town without having the business units built. So as you know, right down the street, there's another development that's going on that has business mixed use as well. That's going to be coming online. There's one down the street that has not been filled in a number of years. It's also a commercial unit. So I just am wary of the fact, and hopefully you have done your homework to make sure you're aware of the business conditions in the town. There's a lot of units that we don't want to see being left vacant in the town. So I hope that is not the case, and just to make sure you guys are aware of that, that was one of my concerns when this project came about, so.
Thank you. We appreciate that and certainly agree. We want to see those units filled.
Okay. Another question I had is, I don't believe that the postal regulations regarding location of the mail facilities maybe was not in place at the time of this original plan. So that should be looked at as far as a location for the coordinated with the postmaster in Tewksbury to find a location for the letter carrier to, access and deliver in the complex. It has to be one central location, I believe.
We can certainly do that, and we can incorporate that as needed into the condominium documents.
Okay. Now another question I had, there was some discussion in the past about funding from the town of Tewksbury. You don't need any of that, correct?
No, that's correct.
Okay. Other than that, I'm all set with the project and the modification you're requesting. So. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm basically all set because in their initial presentation, they explained most of the questions that normally would come up. And Mr. Fratalia has talked about his mailbox. So I'm all set.
Well, we have folks that take care of mailboxes, and we have folks who take care of addresses. We're well covered. All right. So for me, it's the same. I mean, I'll note for anyone again listening that the 33% affordable units is a much higher rate than we typically get. So I think in terms of affordable units, we're doing pretty well with this project. I think it's a small ask to allow the project to move forward. Also note that in the package we received, we had a letter of support from the abutter, which is the church, still in support of the project. I know they were very involved during the original, so that we can make note of that in the record again, that they still maintain their support for the planned project. So I think that's important to at least reiterate. So other than that, I have nothing else that I need on this. So with that, I'll ask, is there anyone on the line who had any questions or comments on this matter?
No phone calls yet, but maybe with the delay, we could just give it another 30 seconds.
Yes, give it a little bit just to give anyone, because they'll take at least 10 seconds before they'll even hear what was the last thing said. I'll use the time again just to mention to anyone who's listening that the call-in number for any public comment is 978-640-4370, then it's extension 209. And again, the meeting, if you're watching it, you already know it, but Comcast channel 99, Verizon channel 33 is where you can see it close to live as possible, I guess. All right, do we still have no one calling in on this one?
Bear with me 1 second. I think I have someone.
All right.
Okay, I have Robert Hanley from 2 Hillcrest Road who'd like to speak.
All right, so we have the name and address for the record. Haley, if you just state your name and your address, and just so we have it picked up on the recording, and then floor will be yours.
Okay, great. My name is Robert Hanley. I two Hillcrest Road, right alongside the.
I'm sorry, Mr. Haley, could I just ask you, I don't know if you have or have not already, but if your TV is not muted, can you do so? Because with the 10-second delay, the background sound can be a bit confusing?
Yes, yep, I have it.
Very good. All right, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I just super short and sweet. I support the project moving forward. They've been transparent with everything with us, so I just voice my support for the project and the changes that's one of them, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Any members have any comments to Mr. Hanley?
All set?
All set. All set. Thank you.
And the chair is all set as well. Thank you, Mr. Hanley, for voicing your support.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Do we have anyone else?
Not at the moment.
Give it a second. We'll drag it on too long. And we don't have a queue up, right? So that nobody's being held off the line, correct?
Nothing in the queue.
All right, perfect. All right. I feel like there's somebody, just standing off camera here for me, just, giving me the stretch sign so I can wait out the 10 seconds. All right. So I think, without anyone else on the line, I think we're all set to move forward. What is the pleasure of the board on the modification of the site plan special permit request?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the modification to the site plan special request permit.
Mr. Chairman, close the hearing first.
John, you
Your
beat
motion-
me to it.
All right. We have a motion to close the public hearing. All right. I have a motion made and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well, so unanimous to close. With that, we'll be returning to Mr. Fratalia, to your motion to approve the modification to site plan special permit.
Yes.
All right, so, and we'll use the language as submitted with the strikeouts and insertions listed there. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
that would be great.
All right, so with that, I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor, we'll start with Mr. Fowler,
Aye.
Mr. Fratalia,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well, so we have unanimous support for the modification. All right.
Thank you all very much. Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
All right, good
Thank
luck.
you. Have a good evening, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving on to agenda item D, 137 Pleasant Street. The applicant has requested to continue this to our April 13th meeting. So do I have a motion to continue this to, you already have this on here?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, you said
Yes.
137?
I'm sorry,
135.
135, I apologize, 135. So do I have a motion to continue this to 7:03 on April 13th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item E, which is 2221 Main Street. The applicant has also requested to be continued to the 13th. And we have that, we have a motion for that to 7:05 on April 13th.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second, motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item F, which is 495 Reuben Street, also to be continued to the 13th at 7:10. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item G, which is 1420 Andover Street, also to the 13th. That would be 7:15. Do we have a motion?
So move.
A motion made. Do we have a second? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. That brings us to agenda item H. Burt Road Development continued from our March 9th meeting, site plan special permit. We have the petitioner on the line.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name's Peter Ellison from TPC. And I'm here tonight representing Scott Kelly of RJ Kelly. First, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All set.
Okay, great. So this project was last in front of your board several months ago, I think back in November or December of 2019. The reason for the delay is that the project is also in front of the Tewksbury Conservation Commission, Andover Planning Board, and Andover Conservation Commission. So there's 4 boards reviewing this simultaneously. We kind of needed the other boards' review to catch up to the Tewksbury review, the status. There were some changes to the plans in the time since you've last seen it. For one, the wetlands delineation changed. This was all within the town of Andover. The building was the larger of the 2 warehouse buildings, was reduced in size by about 13,000 square feet. And there were several updates to the stormwater system. When we last presented to your board, we had an outstanding comment letter from the Tewksbury Engineering Department. And I'm happy to report at this time, I think all of the prior comments in that letter have been addressed. And the only outstanding comment that I saw was the requirement for a land disturbance permit.
No.
You lose them?
From that land disturbance permit. I think the overall intent of that land disturbance permit will be captured by the other permits that we're required to get. For example, in Tewksbury, we'll have an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission that will require, the typical inspections and stormwater controls that are necessary under the land disturbance permit. With that being said, I guess I would send it back to you, Mr. Chairman, to see if you have any questions.
All right, very good. We'll start with Mr. Fowler.
Actually, I'm all set. Reviewing the plans, told me that Andover had the brunt of the workload on this. And with the shortness of the letter from our town engineer, I could tell that we're all set.
All right, Mr. Ryder.
Same for me, Mr. Chairman. I'll agree. After reading Mr. Hardeman's letter, I'm all set. Thank you.
Mr. Fratalia.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. So if I'm not mistaken, so we have the land disturbance waiver, which was submitted that we'll need to do, but if the parking does need a waiver, right? Because we need to split the number. Is that right?
My understanding is that the provided parking meets the requirement of the bylaw, and therefore it does not need a waiver.
Okay, so the split between us and the town that shall not be named is not something we have to account for by a waiver?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
this is Ann McGinty, the town planner. So the parking is in Andover, so that would fall under their jurisdiction, so their bylaws would apply.
Okay, but when we first discussed it, I thought the fact that half the building fell in Tewksbury was triggering our parking requirement, even though no parking would actually occur in Tewksbury. I just didn't know if we needed to address it by giving a waiver and then just basically saying, because it's handled through, I just mean for crossing T's, it doesn't matter to me. I just don't want them to have to come back later because something kicks because we didn't cover it.
Yeah, so it would count for the amount of parking spaces, but they're meeting that requirement.
Okay.
And so in this instance, we're all set, so we don't need a waiver.
All right, very good. We'll leave it to the town that shall not be named. All right. So with that, then we'll open it up to anyone in the audience who has any questions, comments, or concerns on this. Do we have anyone on the line for this?
No one on the line yet.
All right, so we'll give it a couple of seconds just for time to catch up. I view this as pretty non-controversial, so I'm not really expecting anyone to hop on the line. So I think we are free to move forward if everybody is all set. So what is the pleasure of the board on the site plan special permit as requested?
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the public hearing in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. As to the site plan special permit as requested. Oh, I'm sorry, the waiver first, the land disturbance waiver.
I'll make a
On
motion.
that? All right, I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye as well. All those opposed, seeing none, brings us to the site plan special permit itself. We have a motion?
Motion to approve site plan special permit as proposed.
All right, so we have it as proposed and as shown on the most recent plan submitted to the planning board. I have that motion made and a second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes.
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor, start with Mr. Fowler.
Aye.
Mr. Fratalia.
Aye.
Mr. Ryder.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Unanimous pass for the site plan special permit as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. That moves us to agenda item I, which is 600 Reuben Street. Do we have a motion to continue this to 7:20 on April 13th?
So moved.
A motion
Second.
second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. And agenda item J, 325 Marshall Street, also to be continued to the 13th at 7:25. We have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made. Have a second?
Second. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. That brings us to agenda item K, which is 984, 970, 986 Main Street, the Center Fire Station. And do we have somebody for the petitioner on the line? Is there anybody for this on the line?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Richard Montori, Town Manager. We have the design team available to begin with the presentation on some of the issues that were raised at the last meeting, and to obviously answer any questions the board may have, and I'll go over a few other items before we end the presentation.
All right. I think maybe just start with the traffic, because that's the newest piece that hadn't been submitted before. So usually we like to try and handle traffic by itself as best we can. So why don't we start with the traffic, and then we'll go on to what we discussed last time and where we stand.
Sure. Lance, can you put up the aerial figure, board 2?
Yes, Mr. Dorrington, can I have a share? Thank you.
So good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is John Shevlin from Park Corporation. Since our last meeting, we have finalized and submitted our traffic report to the town. We've also had a teleconference call with Mass DOT to go ahead and talk about the proposed project. So I'll go over briefly in regards to our study and what we've have done. Put in there, I think I touched upon a lot of it at the last meeting, but as part of our study, we looked at two things: the traffic safety capacity for the proposed station at this site. We started off by doing a lot of data collection as far as getting traffic count information, crash data, speed studies, also obtained signal plans, and other miscellaneous information. We performed a site visit in order to go ahead and identify and look at how they operate. So we looked at a couple things. One was the safety of the site, and we did that by looking at the crash data and also the site system. The crash data we obtained from Mass DOT showed that there was areas. None of them seemed to be significant. They're low severity. Intersection.
So, Ms. Shevlin, before you get any further, I'm not sure what it is, but your microphone keeps cutting out. I'm not sure if there's anything you can do about that, but just be aware that we're kind of catching every third word sometimes, but other times it's fine.
Let me try getting closer for you then. Is that any better, Steve?
I think so. Like I said, I just wanted to let you know. It's just, I don't know what setup you have there. I just wanted to let you know.
Appreciate it. So the other thing we looked at as far as safe access in and out of the site. So you want to take a look at the site distance issues based on the speeds. Based on that, we have a 40-mile-an-hour design speed. We're able to get safe access into the site. And when I say safe access, there's enough area in there in order to have gaps to be able to see the distance down the road to ensure that you can pull out safely. And then looking at the capacity issues, again, we looked at 3 conditions. We looked at what the existing traffic volumes are in the area. That was 2020 data. Then we looked at the future no builds, which took into account traffic projected out 7 years based on a growth factor, which also included the traffic proposed for the proposed school. Then we looked at the future build, which was the future no build and the future traffic that's going to be generated from this site. As you can imagine, the site and the trips that are going to be generated from this crash, we got information from the fire department based on the calls that they have had over the years. Which averages out to about 17 calls per day. And also as far as the visitors that'll be going to the site, which are in the order of magnitude of 12 to 15 visitors. So this site is a relatively low traffic generator. Doesn't generate too many traffics volumes. But to back that up, we also looked at the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, which is a national publication for different land uses. The numbers that are proposed versus what ITE shows are pretty much generally in line in regards to what the typical volumes will be during the peak hours. When I say the peak hours, I'm talking about the heaviest commuter peak traffic during the morning and afternoon peak hours. Looking at those numbers, we analyzed it, analyzed the intersections, we analyzed the signalized intersections, also proposed site. There is no reduction in regards to the level of service, so we feel that the capacity issues do not change based on the projected trips. As I mentioned earlier, we had a meeting with Mass DOT. We talked about some of the recommendations. We went over the recommendations at the last meeting. What we're looking to do is to put a signal, a flashing signal at the proposed entrance to the site. And with that proposed entrance, that'll be a flashing yellow until an Opticom system or other type of system will be installed in the fire station, which will allow the fire department on the call, hit a button, which will activate that signal. Now that signal goes ahead and turns red to stop all traffic on Main Street. It's also going to go ahead down the intersection of Pleasant Street and Main Street. It will stop the traffic northbound, southbound, and also westbound. This will allow the majority of traffic, if not all the traffic on Main Street, to clear out in order to go ahead and help with the traffic flow from the fire station. We feel with the driveway distance that the station is set back, and then the distance between the signalized intersection and the proposed driveway, there's plenty of time to pass the queue out of that and drain out of that intersection. We would also go ahead and put a signal that would be incorporated at the Bank of America parking lot in order to hold them off as far as coming into the traffic stream when this signal is activated. We flew this by Mass DOT. We provided them with the proposed plan. We talked with a couple members of Mass DOT from the traffic ops section, John Gregory. He felt, based on what was provided, that this is a good installation of an Opticom system. He didn't feel there was any non-starters for this to happen. Obviously, we have to go through the whole Mass DOT process and make a sufficient access permit for the new driveway. But his initial indication is that he felt that this would be an area where this could certainly work as far as helping the traffic flow in this area. But based on our study, we concluded based on the crash data, which is a relatively low number, the site distance, we don't feel that we're going to decrease any safety issues out here. We feel getting access in and out of this site be actually beneficial compared to the existing site over on Pleasant Street. The conditions on Pleasant Street, they restrict the width of the roadway, the distance of the station to the roadway, the queues of the traffic that you have on Pleasant Street. There's just a lot more positive factors as far as traffic flow, the site being at the proposed location. The capacity, as I stated before, doesn't show any decrease in traffic as far as level of service. So all in all, we're under recommendations based on our traffic analysis that this site will go ahead and work just fine, and it's actually maybe an improvement in regards to the existing. With that, I'll leave it up for any questions.
All right, so let's just start with the traffic. Mr. Ryder?
Yes, thank you. A couple that I'd like to bring up. The proposed signals that you have in front of the entrance, do you feel that those are far enough back on the exiting in front of McDonald's property? I would think that those would want to be farther back. It gives you the a better radius coming out of that property.
Yes, Mr. Wright, yeah, one thing, you're correct. We will be looking to move that one to the west, a little further west, which would help in regards to Black Mountain. We can subsidize these on there, but we'll go ahead and we'll finalize those applications. But yes, I'm agreeing with you. If we move that further west, it's clear out that intersection. And even though we just put a turning radius, exiting, staying on the right side of the double center line, this will also just provide an additional $50.
Okay. Yeah, I read the memo that was that you provided. One area of concern, and I know this is a sticking point for Mass DOT, is crosswalks on state roads. They're recommending that you use the Dewey Street crosswalk. I'll be honest, if that crosswalk does not get approved, you'll have a bigger problem by people not using the cross. People will not walk in either direction 50, 75 feet to cross and then back up and around to Town Hall.
Yeah, that's something that we talked about briefly, and that's something we'll certainly communicate and coordinate further with them on that. I know we briefly talked about having a crosswalk, the location somewhere near the driveway. Then there was just discussion in regards to the crosswalk, but we'll, I think it was kind of open in regards to how we left it in regards to where the exact crosswalk was. So we would investigate that as far as the.
Now, as Mr. Gregg stated, what if Mass DOT does not approve that crosswalk?
I mean, he spoke of the project, and he didn't seem to have any significant concerns with what was being proposed. That's something, again, until we submit the final plan, get the survey, up the plan. I'm sure he'll have to comment at that point.
No, and I appreciate that. I know Mass DOT tends not to give you a lot of information out of their meetings until your survey is completed and the curb cuts are submitted. However, this is not relying on that one crosswalk, and I feel that is a significant part to this project. I mean, one being the parking issue and the overflow parking for that fire station is across the street. You are looking at a major issue if that does not get approved. I mean, the Opticom, I think, is a great program there. I think, hiring the proper signal technicians to, control that complicated intersection. But I think along with those components, that crosswalk is one of, if not one of the more critical components of this whole project. Not only with, as Chief with staff crossing Town Hall, if it's not there, people will just try and cross that road, and we're going to create more of a problem.
Yeah, and I think with the flashing signal, again, we will go ahead and we'll propose that with it again. I think with the flashing signal there, it will somewhat slow down traffic anyways. We'll go go ahead and do everything they can to go ahead and get that at that location. Like I said, we went ahead, we approached this with him, and there was just some initial discussion. We'll certainly go ahead and further follow it up.
Okay, a couple other, on your map that you've shown, one point that I brought up was Pleasant Street at the intersection if the engine is to turn onto Pleasant. Have you looked at any flashing that would pull that traffic farther back when you put that whole intersection into red?
Yes, and we have diagrams that, I'm sorry. Yes, we have diagrams that are going to show some of the turning radius movements on that, which I think Mr. Hill was going to display.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fattalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also echo Mr. Ryder's concern about those stoplights on 38. One of my concerns is if you're coming out of the Bank of America parking lot, you are right at that light. Is there any way to push that down 38 more towards Bank of America so they may have a stop sign or a stop light coming out of their driveway as well? Make it a three-way signal?
Yes, we do. If you look at the where the hand is right now going over,
Yeah.
we are looking to put a pedestal signal, so that will be red at the driveway. So we'll have two mast-ons that are going to go over 38 and then down across the street from the Bank of America pedestal. So that'll be a red light.
So they'll be able to see that light coming out?
Yes, we'll line that up with the exit.
Okay. All right. So I guess I have another question, I guess for the chief maybe. How many calls do we have for vehicles coming out of the station on a given day?
Generally, anywhere in the range of probably 15 to 17 calls a day. And that's sometimes split between the stations also, but that's roughly what you're looking at.
So that's day in, night, or just for the entire day?
Pretty much around the clock. Obviously, it tails off probably around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. It starts to tail off and gets quieter. So that runs generally anywhere from about 7 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock at night is when the peak times are.
Okay, great, thank you. One other traffic question I have is, so minimal traffic going in and out of Bank of America, is that what I understand?
The volumes that were going in and out of Bank of America, yeah, they weren't a large generator for Bank of America, but we also were looking at the trips. What I mentioned was the trips generated from the proposed fire station. Okay. But we do have volumes of Bank of America as well.
But very, it seems like it's very minimal to me, but
it is. It's not a big heavy generator. So.
Maybe we can talk to them about selling their building because you don't get too much traffic out of it. Hello?
Freeze up.
Well, that's not my call.
Mr. Chairman, this is Richard Montori. We did speak to them about a right of first refusal of their land in the future. They weren't comfortable doing that, but that's not out of the question as we move forward. But
okay,
it's not something we're going to know. We're going to know now.
Right. Okay, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman, right now. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Fowler.
Question is, what type of signal will there be, and where will it be controlled at the East Street Route 38 intersection?
Well, what we're going to end up doing is you're going to have the Opticom system at the station to go ahead and hit down and activate it. And then the intersection at the proposed driveway, the intersection of Pleasant Street and East Street will be interconnected. So they'll go ahead and communicate together as far as their timings and operations. So we'll have to go ahead and time the signal timings and phasing.
You're talking East Street or Pleasant Street?
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the single life intersection, Pleasant and Main Street with the proposed site driveway.
Look, my question is East Street.
And can you repeat it?
There's a, East Street goes by Pleasant Street, continues on to Route 38, just as it approaches Bank of America. What kind of signal is there going to be there?
At the Main Street, East Street intersection?
Yes.
That's gonna operate as it is now. It's a stop control.
There is no signal there now,
That's correct.
and the people don't stop there now.
It's a stop sign.
Right. Well, now, if you, at the fire station, you put on either the Opticom or hit a switch, and the lights go red on Pleasant and Main Street, you're still gonna have cars coming out of East Street, going north.
Correct. And they will not proceed if they don't have a gap for cars coming on Main Street. But they'll have the red light once they get through their intersection at the driveway.
Well, it almost seems like East Street's forgotten.
No, I mean, that's gonna operate as it does today with the stop control. And then if they do have the right of way to go into Main Street, they'll be controlled by the stoplight.
Well, I didn't think this was going to be important a year ago when they said that this year they were going to be working on Main Street in front of this area, which now is going to be next year. But they also said at that time that that East Street entrance to Route 38 was going to be disbanded, and they're going to force them to use the Pleasant Street turn. That's not going to happen, from what I understand now. So that still concerns me about traffic coming out of there, especially in the evening, in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, State Hospital gets out, and a lot of people come through that intersection going north. I'm not sure if there's no light there, no signal there, to specifically tell them to stop before they get out onto Route 38. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, but currently with what's being proposed, we're not looking to impact that intersection at all. The unsignalized intersection of East Street and Main Street. That's going to be operating similar to what's occurring under existing conditions.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
Yes.
That's going to be operating similar to what's occurring under existing conditions.
Right. Well, I'm not satisfied with that, but that's all right. I don't think I have anything else on traffic right now.
All right. So, this is Chad. So, I'm sort of along the same line with Mr. Fowler, though. I understand that your intent is to not impact it, but I think and Mr. Fowler, if I'm speaking incorrectly, please correct me. But I think what we're saying is we want you to. Meaning, is there a reason not to have some sort of pedestal go off there when the fire engines are coming out? I mean, the stop sign is fine all on its own under normal circumstances. But what you definitely don't want is someone who thinks they've hit the jackpot when they get to that stop sign, when they notice nobody's coming down 38 thinking, oh, great, I can go. And again, I'm accounting for sort of the oblivious. You know what I mean? And, if they see a stop light that goes off only in the event that, emergency vehicles are exiting, the stop sign works fine otherwise, but I'm wondering if you need sort of the belt and suspenders of making sure someone understands they must now not just stop, but stay.
And that's something that could be incorporated we want to add another single head at that location, we could.
Yes,
Right, but I think that's what's being asked. I mean, I don't.
yes.
Okay, so I agree with Mr. Fowler. It would be my suggestion that that be added, because I think it's going to be important as a belt and suspenders matter to make sure that no one coming down East Street is misled into thinking that they should now go just because maybe they're just not paying attention to the rest of what's going on around them. All they see is a clear line to get out onto 38, which is very often not the case. And I'd hate for somebody to think, oh, great, I can go. I've stopped. Now I can go. You know, you can't prevent everything, but I think the light and the stop sign would be the best approach to alleviate the possibility as best we can.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
this light will turn red here when it's activated. So anyone coming down East Street, going through this stop sign will still have this stoplight in front of them.
Yeah.
That's 200 feet away, though.
It's not that I don't think it would necessarily probably do it. All I'm saying is if there's some legitimate reason that there can't be a way to hold that person at East Street as well, then fine. But if there isn't, I don't see the reason not to put one in as an extra, protective measure to make sure that they don't suddenly jet out. And, I'm sure they'd probably see that next red light. I don't know. But why do we want to take that chance if we don't have to? If we have to, fine. But I don't think anybody's telling me that we have to.
Mr. Chairman, this is Richard Montori. We can look at adding that.
Okay. All right, so that would be the preference. And if you come back and you say that it's not feasible and it doesn't make sense for XYZ, fine. But I'd rather it looked at and told me why not, as opposed to we just weren't doing it. So
sure, that's fine.
Other than that, I think the only other one was, and I think Mr. Ryder covered it at the beginning because I thought we covered it at the last meeting, which was that westerly stop section needs to be backed up. It can't be that close to the driveway. It's got to back up.
Correct. And when we developed the survey plans, we find the exact location where it needs to go, accommodate the movements, and to make sure everybody can get it.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, did you catch what John was saying?
I think we lost him.
So again, it looks like Mr. Fowler will be taking over his chair until we have Steve Johnson back online. But as I'm speaking right now, though, I did want to address, if you don't mind, Mr. Fowler, the issue that came up about the crosswalk. And I just wanted to state that there is a crosswalk at Dewey Street right now in Route 38. I had brought that up in a conversation with Mass DOT because I knew that they prefer not to have mid-block crossings. So when we were talking about how people would get to the fire station, there was an agreement that we would use the existing Dewey Street crosswalk. So there is one there. If you go on Google Maps, you can see it, and during the daylight, you can walk it, because many of us that have walked from Town Hall over to the police station have used that as the best access to cross Route 38.
I agree with that.
Steve, this is Eric. I mean, in practical terms, yes, using those crosswalks, but I will tell you, a firefighter that is crossing over the annex lot is not going to walk down Pleasant Street, across Pleasant Street, down Main, across in front of the church to the fire station. And you're going to cut across the town property, and they're going to go straight across the road.
That may be, we can't prevent people from doing stupid things.
No, I understand that, but we also have to provide the safest access and the most direct access for the employees that are going to be parking across the street. And we brought this up. This was brought up by the engineer firm about having a crosswalk there. This is my point about this. Should have been discussed with DOT before this came to the board. I understand, because my dealings with Mass DOT is I know they do not like mid-block crosswalks. Right. And I knew this was going to be a problem, but the engineers are the one that brought this up. Chief Hazel is the one that talked about having a crosswalk there. That is a big concern.
Right, Eric, but really the parking is going to be occurring at Bank of America. That this likelihood of an overflow being needed from the town hall parking lot is not going to happen. In fact, we've talked about this previously. The town hall employees park at Bank of America's parking lot when there's voting that goes on. I mean, so it's something that exists today, and people are actually making that. They're going to Bank of America on election day to park over there, and they have to use the Pleasant Street, Main Street crosswalk, or they'll use the Dewey Street crosswalk.
No, I understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Sadwick. Kirk, do you have anything more?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Very good. Has everybody else, excuse me, has everybody else had their questions answered? Mr. Battaglia?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman, right now for traffic.
All right, I'm all set too. What's the, Mr. Sadwick, what's the next item on the docket here?
I think we were, now we were going to talk about turn movements.
Okay.
So I don't know, Lance.
That's on the screen.
Yeah, in following from the last meeting, there was a number of discussions regarding turn movements in and around the site, and in and around the main intersection at Main and Pleasant. So we prepared a couple of turn movements here that show you how we anticipate the moves coming in and out of the site. This is one that we had shown last time. This is the ladder truck exiting the site. We show here that they don't cross the center flush island, which I know is a concern for the board, and they don't cross the double yellow line upon exit. And we know that was a concern for the board. Showing some of the other, the ingress into the site. This again is the ladder truck coming in. The chief wanted to show that the truck is able to make the turns that are coming in here if, in fact, it may be a day that he has extra equipment on the apron. So we're showing that that truck can enter and make the turns accordingly. We also show the ingress coming in from the left side, making a left-hand turn off of Main Street. This is an eastbound movement, making the turn into the site. And we wanted to show, the chief wanted to show the pump truck turning movements. So we're showing those coming in as well, making a right turn in from Main Street. There was two others that chief wanted to show here, and that is the trucks coming in. If they so chose to use the driveway aisle in between the Bank of America and the fire station, shows that they can make this move and back on into the first bay. Or the pump truck can also do the same type of movement, turning into the second bay and the third bay. We wanted to show turning movements at the intersection here. The one on the left will be turning movement coming from the existing station. This would be making the turn when there was no traffic, a no traffic call. The same situation on the diagram on the right is the same ladder truck making a right-hand turn at that intersection with no traffic. Both can make the turn relatively easy, and they don't cross the double yellow line, making that a right-hand turn. This is both, again, for the calls from the existing station today, and calls from the proposed station located over here at 984. So the question came, what happens in calls when there are vehicles that are parked along the right-hand side of the road? So we wanted to show what that looks like coming from the existing station here at a time of peak traffic. The queues at this intersection back all the way beyond the the existing fire station. What happens in this case is that when the ladder truck or any apparatus is leaving the fire station, unfortunately the apparatus has to travel on the wrong side of the road in order to make the right-hand turn. That's a pretty serious condition. If anybody does escape through this light, if they catch it on the wrong time or just miss it, they're going to be turning a blind left-hand turn right into oncoming apparatus. If somebody's making a right turn here, you know, they're not sure where the apparatus is coming from, they make a right turn, they might get in here and get trapped. The apparatus now has no way to get through both of the vehicles. This one may be able to squeeze over. I'm sure there's times where the firefighters have a tough time navigating the existing condition. That same condition from the proposed, what John had talked about was coordinating this signal with the preemption from the station. Our anticipation is that the time it will take to get the apparatus from the station to the driveway will be enough to clear this left-hand turn movement. So the apparatus, the ladder truck in this case, would have ample time to make this right-hand turn. We see this as a pretty significant improvement over the existing location. The question then comes, the apparatus making a left-hand turn at this intersection. Again, calls from the existing station. What we took a look at was, during the peak travel time with the queues backed up in all the locations. From an existing condition, the apparatus has to, again, travel down the left side of the road, the wrong side of the road, traveling in the opposite direction, and has to make a swing out around the vehicles waiting in this left turn queue, the eastbound left queue, onto this portion of Pleasant Street. You can see here that the truck creates a little bit of a concern here. This is a pedestrian sidewalk, so the overhang will clip this existing sidewalk location, and any pedestrian that would be standing there, would be in peril. You also have a sign that's located right here that I'm surprised hasn't been hit yet, but this condition shows that it might. And in the next left-hand turn, I'll show you where that gets a little bit worse. Again, making this left turn on the eastbound travel from the proposed station. We anticipate the queues being cleaned out from the left-hand turn, so the fire apparatus will be able to make this turn here, avoid cars that are parked at the stop bar, and avoid the, avoid the mounting the curb on the east side of this portion of the leg of the intersection. So one question came, what happens when a vehicle is pulled beyond the stop bar, pulled out? So we're showing a condition here where, to try to anticipate that question that you had. This vehicle is pulled beyond the stop bar into the crosswalk, about as far as they likely could without impeding traffic moving in the westbound direction. We're still showing that this truck coming in here can make that turn in that condition. But the truck does have the ability to do so. That same condition in the existing condition here You see if a vehicle is pulled beyond the stop bar, which would be likely in both scenarios, the truck has to not only drive down the wrong side of the road, but has to make a very awkward swing to get out and around. Again, putting any pedestrians on the sidewalk here in peril. So those were the intersection turning movements that we had discussed at the last planning board meeting. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Just to let everybody know, I'm back on the phone, but I can't seem to get back on online, so.
Okay. Mr. Vice Chair? Yeah.
Hello. So, Mr. Ryder, if you have any questions, you can go first.
No. I think a couple of my the big questions I had is the cars past the stop signs, but I think those have been addressed. I just think, you know, if you can handle any of the preemptive lighting on Pleasant Street, that's going to help potentially on both sides of Pleasant Street, both sides of Main. If you can put a preemptive light there, if you can time those lights to work in conjunction, go to direct red as part of the Opticom, I think you can eliminate vehicles crossing over that stop bar.
Yeah, that is our intention. When we when John's taking a look at the signal timing here, that's certainly something that we are going to consider. I think the other question, and I should address this now, that the other question I think you asked, Mr. Ryder, was what to do about this stop bar. If you can pull this stop bar, this is the, I guess you would call it Pleasant or East leg here, southbound. If you could pull that back a little bit, that's something we have taken a look at and considered. There's a couple of other issues with doing that that will definitely have to be addressed in the design. There's some trees, some sight distance issues, and a couple of other things that we're going to work on addressing.
Okay. I pull not only that stop bar, but the one at Main, on Main. If you can pull that stop bar farther back, you'll eliminate any of that, those cars coming out over that stop bar.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fratelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one observation, and it's coming south on Main Street, taking the left on East. I find that hard to believe that you can make that swing without having to go into that right lane for traffic with cars. But cars are parked there. That swing has got to be a tough swing. So, you know, it may work on paper, but I just don't see that actually happening a lot. I see trucks having to go into that right lane to make that swing. So I don't kind of believe this is going to actually work, but, you know, just an observation. And other than that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Fowler.
Thank you. That same turn from Route 38 onto Pleasant Street, it on paper, as using Mr. Battaglia's terminology, on paper it looks good because the cars that are parked, the cars that are in the right-hand lane, the straight lane or right turn lane and straight lane, you know, straight on Route 38, are turned into the road like someone put them there nicely so you'd have more of an intersection. But if you go back to another screen, right there, those first two vehicles wouldn't be turned like that unless they were specifically there to take a right turn on Pleasant Street. If they were going straight, they'd be up to that stop bar on a straight line, using the center line. So they would be, you can't see my finger obviously, but they would be 10 feet over to the left.
Yeah, we're using the an aerial here because we don't have the survey, but the wheel path and the overhang is still within the double yellow line. It does not cross it.
Okay, as I said, looks good on paper. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. I mean, I sort of had it on following it along on the TV while I was trying to figure this out, but I don't disagree with some of the concerns that, you know, the reality versus what works on paper definitely has to be worked out, or at least addressed as best as possible. I mean, I know that there are problems, you know, with coming out of where the fire station is on Pleasant Street now. Things have been figured out as to how to deal with the reality. I think the same thing's going to happen here, because, you know, perfect world diagrams are fine and showing that the things work, you know, when things are, you know, are done correctly by everyone. But we also need to know if there's some wiggle room for when things aren't, you know, as we hope they would be. So I think that's the most important thing. And I think, you know, sort of goes to what's already been said, which is, gee, I don't really see how that really is going to work in real life. So I think that's the biggest question, is being able to say, yes, this is how it should work. When it doesn't work, here's what we'll, you know, what we still have some room to do and how we would plan to address it. I think, you know, it can't be, it won't be the official word on it, but I think it's important to be able to know that there's a little bit of a way to address sort of reality sometimes creeping in.
Mr. Chairman, it's Steve Sadwick here. I just wanted to point out that one turn movement onto Pleasant Street is when the right lane would be backed up on Route 38. So I don't know how many times the ladder truck has actually made that turn out of, now that one that's being shown right now would be with the regular through lane or right turn lane being cleared. That one can be made without going out into the traffic. It's only when that's backed up and they're using the left turn lane, which I don't think that has happened very frequently in past experiences, because usually it would be a fire truck returning to the firehouse on Pleasant Street versus a call where people would be backed up on that right lane that is being shown there. I went out with the fire department, I think it was in the ladder truck, probably a few days after the last planning board hearing, and they were able, in the ladder truck, in reality, on the ground, able to make that right turn without swinging out into that right-hand lane. And in fact, they were able, I actually videotaped all of their turn movements that we did that day to show that they were not going into any of those other lanes. The only place I think where we had a significant problem was at where North and Main Street intersect because of how tight the radii are for North Street there. But they were able to maneuver around that intersection without going into any of the other travel lanes.
Well, and that's, again, I think that's fine. It's just the fear. I mean, this goes back to when we had the first conversation about the green light being, you know, for the eastbound traffic to clear the intersection. So long as everybody understands that's what they're supposed to do and that's what they do, yeah, there won't probably be a vehicle in the way. But it's back to what I'm saying about, you know, just being able to account for reality. We may have somebody who just doesn't get why it is that they're supposed to go through a green light when their gut's telling them, fire engine's coming, I should stop because that's what I'm supposed to do. You know, if they don't read the, you know, any kind of, you know, signage that's there that's telling them to do so, and they just freeze, they are going to be in the way. Can you go around them? Can you make the turn when you need to? If you can, fine. As long as that's the case, then it'll work in those circumstances when the reality of somebody potentially freezing at that intersection happens, because it could.
I understand your concern there, but I do believe that exists in all directions, whether it's in the existing or the proposed.
I'm not saying necessarily I have a major problem. I just think it is true that it is something to at least be concerned with, you know, so that we discuss it and sort of make sure that everybody's comfortable with the final, the final word on it. But otherwise, I'm all set with this. But what do we have? What do we have next?
I think it's on to design now.
Okay.
Yes, this is Amy Dunlap. I have a PowerPoint to share, but I don't seem to have permission to do that yet. Here we go. Can you see my screen?
You're on the screen.
Great.
What was your comment just then, before?
This is Amy Dunlap from HKT. I'm going to be talking about the design and responding to some of the questions that were brought up about that at the last meeting.
Right.
Okay. So at the last planning board meeting, we presented these renderings of the fire
Amy,
station.
Amy, can't see any images. No one has given you permission.
So are we able to get her images up on the screen?
Here we go.
You see them now?
It was.
Okay. Can you see them?
Yes.
Yes, Amy, we can.
Okay. At the last planning board meeting, we presented these renderings of the fire station, and the board asked if we could take a look at adding ornamentation to the building to make it more closely resemble some of the surrounding houses and other colonial structures on Main Street. The colonial buildings are typically a single box topped with a gabled roof. Typical features include symmetry, double hung sash punched window openings, elaborate door surrounds, including pediments, etc. This really isn't the condition that we have at the fire station building, where we have multiple plane changes along the facade that are responding to the programmatic needs of the fire department. The fire station building form and aesthetic is one of a contemporary architecture. At the first planning board meeting, we described how we arrived at the building form based on the site constraints, the building program, and its division between the unequal floor plans. We talked about how the first floor plan in the lower right-hand corner here was determined by the truck movements on the site and exactly what spaces had to be on the first floor. The layout of the first floor plan is really entirely based on the functional needs of the department, including the truck movements and the operational needs. The second floor plan, which is in the lower left-hand corner here, features the living quarters and the training room. And those are located on the second floor to minimize the response time for the firefighters getting down to the first floor apparatus space. You see that the second floor plan is actually smaller than the first floor plan. And then the third floor plan up here in the upper left-hand corner features the administrative offices, and that is smaller yet from the second and first floor plan. So the program is really divided between the three floor plans based on the operations, and that in turn sort of creates unequal floor plates, which are of very different sizes between the three floors. This was the resulting massing model that we showed you at a previous meeting. It's the first massing model that we did, and it's a direct result of those issues on the site and the program division between the three floors. And as you can see, it's really not a simple single box shaped building. We talked about how the preliminary massing models were really based on the functional arrangement of spaces, and that was dictating a very contemporary building form for the project. The building form was developed as we went from there, looking to create spaces with a natural light and views, which are known to improve the employee well-being and performance. We created long expanses of glazed openings to maximize daylight and views into the occupant spaces and improve the firefighters' experience over their current conditions in the existing station. We also, with the design, with the unequal floor plates, we were able to create roof decks to provide outdoor spaces for the firefighters, both for living off of their day room and dining room, and for training off of their training room. As we developed the building more, you can see the elevation, which you have seen before. And in this, you can see where ornamentation is used in the design, such as the projecting window trim around the long vertical window and the long horizontal window along the second floor, or the sun shading devices along the third floor. They really are in keeping with the overall building form and aesthetic, and something really of a contemporary nature. Following the last planning board meeting where these renderings were presented, we looked at multiple options for applying different ornamentation to the building. We looked at altering the roof lines. We looked at adding a contemporary interpretation of a cupola, which was suggested by a board member. And we looked at applying different types of sculptural ornamentation, among other options. Unfortunately, none of the attempts were successful in really creating a harmonious architectural solution that would improve upon the current design. The design team reviewed the options with the committee, who were in agreement that the applied ornamentation was really in conflict with and detracted from the overall building design. The committee really preferred to proceed with the current design as we've shown here. We feel like the current design really succeeds in its simplicity, its form, its scale, its responsiveness to the functional needs of the town, consideration of the budget constraints, and then the long-term maintenance requirements of the town. That's what I have right now.
All right. So we'll keep with the same order. Mr. Ryder?
Thank you. I guess, it's all on taste on the what one's opinion versus others. I think it's a bit modern for in between those where it's going to sit. But if the committee, I'll leave it up to the committee that and then the chief and town administrator that are going to be living in these quarters all the time. I think if they're satisfied with it, I'm okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fratelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you were showing one of the photos previously about the side view coming south on Main Street, there's a project there that has been approved and not developed yet. And once that's up and built, you won't see the firehouse from that side coming in. You understand what I'm saying in the location there? I think it's the Sullivan property.
Yep.
Okay, so again, I'll go back to my comments about not, liking the design as far as it being so far off the street and unseen. I agree with Mr. Montori saying, in the end result, the firehouse itself will look as good, if not better, than other ones that we've seen, or I've seen in other communities. But again, being so far off the site, I can't wrap my hands around the building being that far off the street. So, so for that reason, your design looks great. I wished it was, 80 or 90 feet closer to the street with an apron. So, and I'll go back to Mr. Montori if I could. Was there any more discussions about some of my comments about other options down the road, Mr. Montori?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, so we did speak with the owner of the property in front of the proposed station.
Okay.
He is still not interested in selling the property. He did mention that he may be interested in leasing the property to us for 99 years, but he has not given us a proposal at this point.
Okay, so what would the lease facilitate for us?
We haven't seen a proposal from him. We've asked for it. We haven't seen it. It would allow us to utilize, he would allow us to take down the house and utilize the land, but we haven't seen any terms of a lease.
Okay. So eminent domain is still not an option on the table, I guess, correct?
I just think that would be too costly for us because eminent domain usually is. Plus, it's an existing, not just because of the value of the land, but also adding in what the value of the business that he currently has on that land. I think both combined would be very costly to the town and not worth it. Better off waiting down the road if it does come up for sale to buy it and open up that area, but it wouldn't solve your issue of moving the or shortening the drive.
Yeah, and that's my concerns. It continues, and I'm sorry. I'm in disagreement with the majority of you of staff as far as in the design team. But the property that's out front. I mean, in the perfect world, if that was gone, I mean, the firehouse looks fantastic, and I would have no problem, going along with the design and so forth. But the eminent domain question to me is perfect in the fact that the requirements is that it's public use, and again, it's for our public safety, and it just makes sense to me. It's a good fit for the community. It's beneficial, in the effort to make sure we have the best fire protection in town. We have I'm not against a new firehouse. I love the idea of a new firehouse, and I'm willing to support that. But again, I have to go back to my initial plan about it being so far off the street. I mean, you're taking away the ability of parents driving by Pleasant Street now, seeing a fire station, a firehouse, firefighters outside, because you will never see the firefighters out front being that far off the street. So, I mean, I drive by it regularly because I'm a resident in that area, and I see the fire truck. I drive by with my grandchildren in a car, and they see, oh, there's the fire truck, there's the ladder truck. It's great to see it. But this building, and I'm going back to my initial opinion, is we're not going to see this building, and that's unfortunate. So I would love to see us take that property by eminent domain, make it aware to him that, listen, this is the perfect use for us, for the community, and push the issue. So, but just my opinion. And with that, I'll end. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fratelli, you missed your calling. It sounds like you should have been a firefighter.
I tried to be a firefighter, Mr. Fowler, but at the time in the city of Boston, it didn't come about.
Well, that's all right. Our loss. Amy, could you go to the second floor room footprint schematic inside? I'm not sure. Yes, okay.
Right here on the lower left.
Yes, right. I'm curious as to why there's a bedroom on the far right side of that hallway, and there's a vacant room beside it. What are the reasons for those?
It looks like the label for the room you're calling a vacant room is actually missing. That is a bunk room as well. It's a bunk room that has two beds in it rather than one. Okay,
well, that answers that question then, because I couldn't figure out for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks why, what was the use of that, and why was that one other bedroom so far away? And they had a long way to go to get to the quote unquote pole. That's my first question. Second question was the pole. Obviously, it's the only location we can put it. And I'd like to be able to see a site. Amy, if you could tell us, or if the sheet could tell us where there is a split-use pole, where you come down half the pole or a portion of the pole, step off and go to the other pole to continue your flight down. Did either of you have any ideas about that? Where we could view it? View one in question?
Chief, I don't know if you are aware of any. I thought there was one in the Wellesley Fire Department, but I'm not sure.
I do not believe Wellesley has a split pole. Their runs are fairly long going down. An example would be probably the closest would be Littleton Fire Department, which would goes right from the day room right down to the floor, and it's probably about a 9-foot pole. But there is no transition to another pole. It's just a quick access down. So
Okay. So you're saying without going to Wellesley, which is not a problem for me, but it wouldn't be the same. There's nothing around here like that for a dual pole?
not that I'm aware of on a split pole, but keeping in mind the reason why we have the height is because of the apparatus space, extended height for the raising of the apparatus within the bays, and being able to tilt.
Well, let me ask you this. The other stations that have that, obviously they all have apparatus with tilt cabs. How do they do it?
A variety of ways, pulling it out onto the apparatus bay. A lot of communities have their own fleet maintenance at off-site locations, DPWs, where they have the ability to do that. We just don't have that currently here in town.
Okay. That doesn't really answer my question, but well, it still comes down to the same question of safety. You're balancing safety with time. And the reason for the pole is to be more quickly go from the bunk rooms or the living quarters down to the apparatus floor instead of going down the stairs. Is that correct?
It is to give the firefighters the option of whichever one they feel comfortable with. They can use the pole. If they cannot use the pole, if they want to use it, it's there. If they want to use the stairs are there. So there'll also be an elevator in the building also. So there are multiple ways of getting down to the apparatus floor.
Well, if you want to use an elevator, you'd really be slow getting the apparatus out. Wouldn't you agree?
Again, it's options, and we're just giving the maximum amount of options that we can possibly give.
Well, Chief, you kept saying you're looking at response time, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, well, response time getting into an elevator would be pretty slow.
Yes, I honestly don't think that people would use the elevator to go to a call, but coming back from a call, I think that they would possibly use it, coming back, go up instead of going up the stairs, but obviously they can't go up the pole.
No, coming back is different. You might be tired coming back from a bad run. You get in the elevator to save your energy. But
exactly.
When you're going through a call, a fire, emergency, whatever, everybody wants to be expeditious. And I just don't like the idea of weighing speed versus safety. Having not being able to see the split pole, number one. Number two, it really doesn't matter as far as being quick, because if you have three people on an apparatus, two go down the pole, one goes down the stairs, they're going to have to wait for the guy that went down the stairs anyways. Wouldn't you feel correct in that? That be a fair statement?
Again, it's a choice of who wants to use the stairs versus who wants to use the pole. So the split pole is two separate moves down the pole. So it's not one on top of the other. They're physically separated from each other. So there's a physical distance between the two.
Yes, I understand that. But I'm still saying you didn't answer the question. I said, if you had two people going down the pole and one person going down the stairs, the people on the pole are going to be in the truck before the fellow firefighter gets down the stairs. when you feel that be a correct statement?
It's a correct statement, and I guess it goes to the point of the people using the pole get down there a little bit quicker than the people going on the stairs, but I would still not make a person use the pole versus the stairs. That's
Well, I'm
a
not saying
personal
that.
choice.
I'm just saying you're not gonna save any time with the apparatus. In this theory of use, using the two different methods. I understand you're right, and not saying you have to use the pole. But some people might feel inhibited or just unsafe with the pole, never having done it themselves. It will be a training process, but I don't think you're gonna save any time with having a pole versus the stairs. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. So, I'm going to defer to Mr. Fowler on a lot of those technical, but the outside design, I'm the member who brought that up.
Mr. Chairman?
There's some kind of echo, right?
Yes.
All right, well, I left the phone on. I'm going to switch back to the lights off. All right, can you hear me?
Much better.
All right, so that's the phone. I mean, I'm not sure what the echo is. I think I'm on more than one. But John, the design. I understand that there's an issue with, your modern design. I wasn't confused. I understood that it was a modern design. But what I was asking for was for you to account for the fact that if you put in a modern design right in the middle of what is otherwise, I'm getting all kinds of feedback. Sorry.
This is crazy.
I don't understand where all that echo is coming from. See if that helps. So it's just, what I was trying to ask for was some design that could be added to the building, especially for the areas where it can be seen, to try to account for the fact that you're dropping what is a very modern-looking building amongst buildings that are not modern-looking buildings. So we've done it with other places in town where we've said, okay, we understand what your real design is. What we're saying is we'd like it to try to blend in a little bit better. There's a lot of different examples of it, but we've asked for things on top of buildings that don't, would normally never have such things. I'm pretty sure we even asked for them, we approved a hotel. And yet, despite that the fact that it's like a national hotel, we asked them to put, the porticos on top because it fits with the neighborhood, it fits with the design of buildings around it, and it sticks with sort of an older look to the town. So I understand that there's not, that it's a modern design, but I'm not asking anybody to change the architecture to the structure itself. We're talking about decorative items, or at least I was, in terms of the outside, because it's a huge building. It's going to be seen. It's going to be seen above the buildings around it because of the size. I was simply talking about whether or not there would be a way to try to help it blend in with what's around it, which are an old church, a bank that is not what you expect a bank to look like, an old house, a old school that's another use. Across the street, there's another bank that doesn't look anything like a bank, and town hall. And then one of the oldest houses in town on the other corner. So when I said it, I understood how the building was built, and I understand what the design is. What my question was is there a way to add some things to it that could help it blend in? It sounds to me that that's apparently not possible. Is that correct?
I would say we tried a number of options, and we try to, when we're developing a design, have our harmonious aesthetic that all of the different component pieces are in keeping with the same aesthetic. And
Who's
applying,
harmonious aesthetic, though? That's my point. That is what I'm asking, though. You're
Right.
saying you don't want to change the building you designed. I get that. You designed it. That wasn't my question, though. You're putting a modern building with the way it's designed amongst non-modern buildings. So my question was, and again, I'm pretty sure I'm talking about the kind of things that are just simply add-on aesthetics. They don't change. They're not a functional real use of the building. So I'm not changing your first floor, second floor, or anything else. I mean, is that the only answer? You just don't want to. Is that correct?
I'm
Hello? I think we're losing everyone.
Yeah, it's getting
I don't know.
crazy.
I'm still here.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me, the chairman, or you can't hear somebody else?
I couldn't hear you, the chairman.
Okay, but I'm not sure where it drops. So my question was that the things that I was talking about that could be used as design things, like, the top of the building or something, I understood that you looked at it, but you're saying you just don't want to do it, not that you can't do it. Is that correct?
We're not saying that we don't want to do it. We're saying that we believe in creating an architecture that works together. It's sort of like taking the flip side and saying, let's put some modern ornamentation on a colonial building. And to us, that wouldn't be a proper aesthetic choice. So we looked at options, we evaluated how their appearance was, and they all looked out of place. They didn't look appropriate. And so we came to the determination that the design that we have now was the best solution to the problem at hand.
Okay. So I think that's the same answer that I just said, which is it's not that it can't be done. You just don't want to. That's fine. Okay. I don't have anything else on that. Do we have any other members with anything else before I open it up for public comment?
Mr. Chairman? Well, Fowler,
Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Bob.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's funny, two things just went through my head as far as colonial. Amy, in your opinion, maybe not true colonial, but a mansard roof, and I don't think I'm going to start putting mansard roofs on your first-story building. A mansard roof, is that semi-colonial or what? What would you call a building with a mansard roof?
I think it would depend on the overall design of the building. I don't think I would necessarily put it in that category. I think it would depend on the overall design.
Okay. The only reason I say that is the two buildings in the center of town now that are both one-story buildings with a mansard roof. You put a mansard roof on anything and it breaks up the roof line. And instead of having a flat roof, you have something that looks a little bit of design. Going back to what Mr. Patalia was talking about earlier about the putting the modern building between the two colonial style buildings, the old the bank, Middlesex Bank, which is Bank of America now, and the church, and even the police station. It's truth that, but if you were to follow again with Mr. Patalia's plan that he brought to the light, of the eminent domain, if that property was taken and you were to build a fire station on the two pieces of property, you wouldn't have to have a three-story building, and you wouldn't have to have a split pole, and you wouldn't have to have a lot of things that you're forcing yourself into, and you truly, I know some people don't like the, a slope roof, pitched roof, because, for whatever reason, but you could design the top of it with the mansard roof, such as you have on the fire station and the town hall annex now. But that's just an option. I mean, if you had that, sure, you're not going to put it all over where the building is now, because of the expense of the two-story building to the left of the fire station. I guess the expense for that is something, I don't know what the price is, but is prohibitive. I think that's going to, well, I have an opinion about that, but that's all right. I'll hold the opinion to myself. Just putting what Mr. Fratalia said, adding what I just said about if you put it over in the site that you have and there's the both McDonald's properties, because they're both is, you could have a 1 or 2 story building with everything that we had before. My God, we had a plan for a 2-story building designed over on the other lot where the present fire station is. I just don't understand why we couldn't really look at the whole picture and continue to do this in a manner that we wouldn't have some of the obstacles that have been thrown at us. And as a lot of people have said, when they do their, the sales pitch for this, well, the site is tight. It's the angles, not much property, not much area to have any outdoor activity. Why? My question, I didn't even ask it. When they have training at the fire station, the 2 or 3 other pieces of apparatus, ambulance, engine 2, engine 3, come down and they park in front of the fire station. If the ladder truck or something goes out from the center, I wonder how difficult it's going to be to drive in to the apron and back into the station. I never asked about that, but I hope someone has thought about it. That's all. I'm just expounding upon Mr. Vitalia's thoughts from before. And Amy, let me just say this, if I may. I know I was very opinionated about the looks of the building at the beginning. I thought what you have done since that first message, that first comment, is fantastic. You did something that I didn't really want at all. But what you did was turn it around, and it looks very nice. But as Mr. Fratalia said, unless you have to, it's not meant for the center of town. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. All right, so without any other comments, I'll open it up. Do we have anyone on the line who's waiting to discuss this?
There's no one waiting right now.
All right, so we'll give it a couple of seconds just to make sure that we don't have anybody who's trying to join after the delay. I mean, we didn't have a lot of people that came in for the last meeting either, so I'm not necessarily expecting a lot of public comment at this time, but I just want to give them a little bit longer before I call it off as not going to happen. All right, does that feel like I delayed 10 seconds? So still no one on the line, correct?
Nope, still no one.
All right, so with that, then, I will bring it back to the board. Actually, does anyone on the petitioner's side have anything else that they want to discuss at this time?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Richard Montori.
Go ahead, yes.
So just a couple of things before we close this and probably move to a vote. I think we tried to address most of the issues. It's important to note that we've looked at, as I've mentioned in previous meetings, we've looked at all of the, we've looked at other sites. We looked at the current site that the station's on. We believe this site we are putting the new station on is actually a better site. I don't agree with the members who believe it should go on the current site. I don't believe that we have obstacles on the current site that we're proposing. I believe we have addressed all of those issues, regardless of the opinions that were brought forward. It's important to note that if this project doesn't move forward on this site, we're at least 2 years away from being able to bring back a project. We're going to have to determine a location, which still may not be the current site of the Center Fire Station. We're going to have to design a new station that will cost additional funds. We are going to have to increase the budget to meet the increasing costs of any delay in this project. But more importantly, the firefighters are going to have to exist in a station that is truly unlivable and unsafe. And that would be a shame. Finally, the funding for this project that was voted on at the ballot specified the site that we are using or proposing, and the town meeting votes also did the same, so we'd have to re-vote both. So it's not as easy as picking this project up and going to the current site or any other site. So that should be kept in mind. And I'll close it at that.
All right, any other comments from the petitioner's side?
I do have a caller, if it's not too late.
No, that's fine. I'd rather be lenient on that than not. So if we have somebody, let's have them.
Yep, hold on. Oh, he might have hung up. I'll give him a chance to call back.
All right, so while we're waiting to see if we get whoever the resident was to call back, so we had nothing else from the petitioner side. Any other comments from the board members at this time while we're waiting on the phone?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment if I could.
Mr.
I guess I
Patel.
would ask the town manager, Mr. Montori, is, what is the plan going forward if we were to secure the McDonald House after the fact of a building being set in the back?
It would just give us different access to the site. We wouldn't move, unless we get the McDonald's site sooner than later, the building would be in the position that it's in. Would open it up more to the street. You wouldn't have the house in front of it. It would just give different access in and out of it. Is that about right, Amy?
Yeah.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Patel? I'm sorry.
Well, it answers my
Go ahead.
question to a degree, but again, like I mentioned in one of the earlier meetings, we're gonna have a 235-foot driveway with nothing in front of it, and that's plan with the building in mind, just, it baffles me that we can't, and have to settle for the building that far back. And I understand, Mr. Montori, you have done an extraordinary amount of work on this, and I applaud you for that. But I mean, I don't know what some of the residents are seeing, or whether they even are able to see this discussion tonight or have in the past, but I can't believe they're in your side as far as putting it that far back. I think they would rather have it up front. I myself would. So, I mean, if it's not possible, then I understand, but having a plan for that building, if we were to be able to get it, I think I would need that plan, or some kind of plan for that particular house. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I mean, we had tried to get, ownership of that house, and it just didn't work out. I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Fattalia on that point. It would have been nice for us to have that house, but the owner just wasn't interested in selling it to us. And I haven't even seen the proposal he has currently for for leasing it. But I just know from my experience that the amount of time and the cost of eminent domain is just not worth it. And I just didn't think it made sense for us to do that.
okay. Well, another question I have in response to that, Mr. Mitchell, if the fact was that we were having that building, would that alleviate all of our parking concerns? With the building up front, parking in the back, no need to ask Bank of America for any of their property. I mean, Amy, maybe that's your question.
Yeah,
If the building was on site, where the McDonald house is, in a driveway to the rear, would that allow us enough parking capacity to not have to go to Bank of America and lease their 10-year agreement and have enough parking for our needs and training purposes as well?
Amy, may I address that?
Yeah.
Mr. Dorrington, would you mind letting me share my screen? So on the site here that we're taking a look at, here's the McDonald house. If we picked up this building and we shifted it all the way forward, the building is maximizing the width of the lot currently. So all we really do is we would bring that building forward in this location and have no way to get around it on the site. We would still have to utilize the entirety of the Bank of America to get to the rear of the parcel. And that would.
There couldn't be a double wide driveway coming out of the firehouse for two engines and one to the other coming out?
No, this building here that I'm highlighting here, that's the width of the building. It's the entire width of the lot. There would be no availability to provide any egress or ingress behind the building and still utilize the lot. You would have to have a subsequent deal with the Bank of America parcel to the right in order to make that happen. As it is, Bank of America expressed concern about having fire folks utilizing the fire department from utilizing their ingress or egress location. So it's not as easy as just bringing the building forward either.
Okay. If we break it down to the degree of having four bays rather than 5, I mean, that's doable, wouldn't it be?
I don't
know.
Yeah, I think you're chasing problems at that point operationally. That's more of an architectural question than an engineering question. So I'll let Amy address that.
Okay.
So, Amy, did you have a comment or?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that would create operational problems, as Lance said, trying to determine what vehicles would be stacked behind others. It's really not as simple as just moving the building forward. We would have to talk to the chief, but there aren't a lot of vehicles in there, and most of them are frontline responders that really need access to the doors to get out quickly rather than being stacked behind another vehicle that needs to be moved. That's how we arrived at 5 bays. I think the chief, that was sort of his minimum number.
Okay. Understood.
I think if I can add to that, I think the redesign would include putting all of the public spaces in the rear of the building, so none of them would be visible, to maintain that 5-bay apparatus.
Any comment, Chief?
The 5-bay apparatus and the layout, as Amy said, operationally, that works for us. And moving the building forward is not going to gain you. Vinny, I respect what you're saying as far as moving the building forward. Speaking with the firefighters and just knowing operationally how it works, having that driveway coming out is actually, it's not a bad thing. I realize that setting the building back, it doesn't seem like it's going to be in the forefront of, the community and being able to see it, but the size of the building, the scope of the building, it is going to be very visible. And talking with the guys, actually driving out the driveway and having that availability of just getting yourself settled and coming out instead of coming right onto traffic or right onto Main Street is actually, it's not a bad thing. So, but again, operationally, the 5 bays and the way that it's laid out, that's, it's a good layout the way that it is right now. If that answered your question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we do have the person back on the line, so I think why don't we try to get to the public comment before we have anything else. We still have that person there?
We do. Yep, Joe, whenever you're ready. Are you still here?
Hi, how you doing? I just have a comment.
Nope, I'm sorry, sir. Sir, if you just state, sir.
And
Sir.
with other
Joe, can you
around it.
stop? Can you stop for a minute?
Sure.
Would you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, Joe Freeman. I'm on Foreman Road Circle.
Okay, you're all set. Go ahead.
I just hear you saying you want to blend it in with everything, but yet you want it to be noticeable. I mean, wouldn't it be more noticeable how it's designed? That's just my feeling on it. It'd be more noticeable that way as a fire station, how they designed it, opposed to trying to blend it with the houses around it. That's just my comment, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Was there anything else?
No, I mean, I
Okay.
honestly don't know that it would be, that's the location for it, but you all know where it should or shouldn't be, not me. So I guess I can comment on that because I don't know where any other location would work other than where it's at.
All right, thank you very much. Do any of the members have any questions for Joe?
You have a good day and stay safe.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so just to return to the conversation that was kind of going on before we grabbed the resident. I mean, I get Mr. Patalia's comment in that if we had the front property, I believe the building would have been designed differently because we had it. I mean, obviously, I think the design would have fit the property that we had to work with. I think we're talking about, round pegs and square holes when we're talking about, well, what if and I think I understand the concerns of everybody. I think we have to at least try to address the property we have to work with and the design that's being presented, and do we or do we not think it's going to work? At least for this, to try and move this forward. I mean, I know there are a lot of the wishes of it could be different, but unless we're willing to go or send them all the way back to the drawing board in terms of restarting the entire process, then I think we have to try to address the one that we have in front of us. If ultimately the decision is that just doesn't work, that's fine. I mean, that's every member's prerogative. But I think trying to think of things like, well, what happens when we get the property? well, there's no guarantee that you're ever going to get that property. You might not. In the event you don't, can the site do what it needs to do as it exists in this proposal? You know, and if they put in enough of the things we asked for, do you feel like it can move forward? I think that's really the only thing we can try to address at this point, because, you know, all the wish sites and whatnot, they all require to start over. If that's the determination of the board, that's fine. But I don't think we're going to get any property we don't already have in time to make any kind of a change to what we have in front of us. Because again, the building that we have can't fit any differently than the way they designed it on the property they have. Because even getting the other property, you can't move that building forward. You need a whole new building. Is that correct? Am I saying that correctly?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So I know I think I got one of the messages here from Anna, and my understanding is the town engineer has not had an opportunity to render a comment on the latest plans. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. This is Ann McGinty.
Okay. Other than, well,
we had a final letter from the town engineer.
Yeah, that's not correct.
Yes.
Sorry, I misheard you. He has not gotten a chance to look at the turning plan and the traffic study that was submitted that we received on Saturday. So he has not gotten a chance to review that.
So just the turning plans.
And the traffic study.
I'm sorry, the traffic study. Okay.
I would just add, though, that he was on the conversation with Mass DOT, so the town engineer is aware of what is being proposed out on Route 38 as far as any of the preemption signals or anything else that's going on there.
Okay.
And I would also, Mr. Chairman, just so that you're aware, when it comes to deciding whether or not to have peer reviews for traffic, the town engineer and I did discuss about the Pleasant Street project, the school project, and we did decide that it made sense because we were adding a new school facility at that location to bring in a peer review. In this instance, Kevin Hartman and I looked at it and said, you know what? We're taking one operation and moving it from Pleasant Street, and we're moving it to Main Street. So we thought that it did not make sense to have a peer review for the traffic because the numbers were all the same. You've had all of the evidence that's been brought forward as far as turn movements and everything else, and you've had it presented to you this evening. And like I said, Kevin and I were both on that conference call with Mass DOT when it came to preemptions and turn movements on Route 38.
Okay. So I guess I have to ask a question before we move any further than this. So for the petitioners, you can tell that, you know, in this evening's meeting, we have four of our five members present. And I have no idea whether the members are prepared to vote or not, but in the event that the members were willing to vote this evening, I leave it up to the petitioner before I even ask that question of whether or not the petitioner would want to go forward with the four members that are present, knowing that you have to get 4 out of 4 for what you're asking for, or it won't move forward because we don't have our fifth member.
Mr. Chairman, I think we can move forward. I mean, I think we've answered, or at least made an attempt to answer all the questions and concerns, and unless the board isn't ready, I think we're prepared to have you move forward.
Okay. So then what I want to do is, because I don't want to run us into an issue as we've had recently. So I want to go around around the computer and see where everybody feels like they are. Mr. Ryder, at this point, if we were to close the hearing, would you be prepared to vote on it?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
No.
All right, so Mr. Fowler. Mr. Fratalia?
No.
All right, so I will return then to the petitioner. with that polling of the planning board at this point, I would suggest that the petitioner not request that we close the hearing and vote at this point. But I would like to return to the two members who still have outstanding issues. If we could just, I'll start with Mr. Fowler. If you could just run through, if there are no issues that will alleviate your concerns, that's fine. Please say so. But if there are specific things that they need to provide, if you could give some guidance as to what you still would be looking for to be resolved between now and, say, our next meeting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. The one question, I tried to get your attention, and I guess my mic was off before, about 20 minutes ago. No, not your fault. When Mr. Patali was talking and they were trying to pull the building forward, my question was going to be, although something that Mr. Montori said put a squash on it in a sense, if I could explain myself. If you turn the same building sideways and you use the same driveway to go in and you turn left into the building, all 5 bays on a straight shot, I wasn't about to get my measuring stick out and do this on the screen of the computer, and I don't have the plan in front of me. I'm curious is if you could build that building, everything costs money, build that building with the 2 floors, first and second floor apparatus and the living quarters, and the 3rd floor behind the building, administrative section behind the building, so it's part of the 1st floor. Maybe you had to follow, but I'm wondering if it would fit. That way, you'd see the building. You could have, obviously, you'd have some different on the left side of the building facing the street than you have now, because it wouldn't be just a plain wall. You'd want to put something there. But would it fit? And I'm asking Amy if this is possible.
I don't have a scale in front of me right now or a drawing to measure and tell you for sure. I can tell you when we started the design process a long time ago, we looked at how to orient the building in the back portion of that site. And as I recall, we did look at turning it 90 degrees as you're describing on the back portion of the site. And there were difficulties in getting the trucks to make the turns that they would need to. But I don't have the measurements in front of me to answer the question definitively.
Well, I'm trying to say thank you, Amy. My caveat was Mr. Montori said one of his last comments was the time of doing we take the property by eminent domain is very time consuming. And I understand his desire to get this moving. How much of a time constraint is it if you were to do it that way?
At a minimum, we would a year, I would think, because we'll miss going out to bid this construction season, but when you go through the courts, especially with what we're going through right now, I have no idea. I would think it's hard for me to say, but
okay. I mean, I'm just trying to look at the big picture, and I would hope that would work, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's something that maybe we should have brought up before, or I should have brought up before, but it never crossed my mind. I don't know. That's. I would just hate to do something and wish we had not. In other words, taken the time, and I know you've taken a lot of time in the last 14 years, since the last plan, 16 years since the last plan. But I don't know. I'm very up in the air on this. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Mr. Chairman, if I may just add one point.
Yes.
Just to add that we didn't take citing the building here very lightly. We actually had another engineering firm look at this site prior to HKT. CBI Consultants did the original feasibility plan for us, and they looked at the site. They actually looked at the current site too, but they focused on this site and they determined it would work. And they determined it was a good site to put the station. They identified the long driveway that is a concern to some of the members, and they thought that that actually would be a benefit because it gave the firefighters time driving out to understand the traffic on the road. So this wasn't just pulled out of the air. We actually have had now 2 engineering firms look at the site, and they were 2 different engineering firms. I just wanted to make sure that was put on the record.
Mr. Montori, just to feed off of Mr. Fowler's question, I know we were talking about time, but there's also an expense question. Is there any ballpark number you could come up with as to how much more, if you were to go after that property on the front? And I guess the only guaranteed, well, kind of guaranteed way to go about that would be eminent domain. Did you factor or did you figure out a ballpark idea of how much more expensive, or how much more that would add to the project?
By going for the property in the front?
Yes. Just to feed off that question, because I mean, I think any change in orientation for the building, I think the way Mr. Fowler was explaining, I think requires that front piece. So I'm just curious, is there a ballpark figure? You know, we don't know how much time, because obviously there's a lot of things going on, but the question, you know, is there an amount that might be associated with it? You have a ballpark idea about?
As far as purchasing the building, we don't, because the owner was never interested in selling it. From an eminent domain standpoint, it would be, you know, the value of the property and the business that was lost. You're probably talking $1 million plus, but honestly, I can't say that for sure. I just don't know.
And the ballpark 1.5 also doesn't include costs to us in terms of litigation and whatnot, right?
Correct. That's not including any litigation and then any redesign that we'd encounter if we wanted to move the building up. So it's just hard for me to say. And the you know, by delaying the project, you're probably looking at a 5 to 10% escalation depending on when you end up building. Also, you know, it's hard for me to say what they would rule on it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hold you to a number. I was just trying to ballpark the thought process, I guess.
It'd be far more than what the building is assessed for, put it that way.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Fowler, just to get back to you. So, is there something that you'd like to have from the petitioners that would move you forward to being prepared to vote or not? I'm just trying to make sure I'm giving them the right information.
I would just like to know, and maybe Amy could do this expeditiously, and I don't mean this evening. If that building idea, I mean, the main part of the building is obviously the apparatus area. That has to work in a manner that it's going to be functional. I understand that. And if it's not functional, it's not going to work. So if we're able to turn that building sideways to 90 degrees to Route 38, and you could do everything you wanted to with the building, would it work? I mean, would it work for the reasons, eliminating the pole, eliminating the third floor, and just putting the third floor, as I said before, in the rear of the building? And that, doing that, I'm not even sure then if we'd be able to have enough room for parking without using Bank of America's parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of variables here, but something that, I mean, I can't draw it up now. I like doing that stuff, but I can't.
I can show you quickly on the site plan if you're interested.
Also,
Sure.
Mr. Fowler, can I just ask for a clarification for my own? That's not with the site as it exists. You're talking about by including that front piece.
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
right. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment, please?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Who's that?
Chief Hazel, if I could make a comment, please, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Okay. We did look at this. We looked at it with CBI. We also looked at it with HKT. And one of my concerns with orienting the building this way was when the guys are responding, it's a hard right-hand turn or a hard turn coming out responding to a call. When, with the orientation the way it is, the calls are when they're coming back and there's not the urgency going out. So the chewing up of the tires and making that hard turn coming out was very difficult. And also the turning radius coming out, it was just, we did look at this and we went with the kind of design partially because of that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I see that.
Mr. Fowler, I see that they're kind of moving the design around.
I'm sorry?
That's not really where you're talking about, right? You're talking about
No,
moving
he wants it down farther
He wants it on the up. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
and square.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, Chief Hazel, your statement won't change even when this is moved further to the front of the property, correct?
Yeah, it makes this right turn out of here very, very difficult. And you have to have all of the folks, all of the general public drive across the apron.
And why is the building not parallel with the rear lot line, the side lot line?
It's not in this configuration. This is only a graphical representation of it.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you had that parallel with I mean, we had no setbacks in the back for the most part. So if you turn the front, the Route 38 side of the building parallel with no, the other way. Okay, now put that building parallel with the side lot line. There you go. Now would it work there?
This is your front apron here. You're going to have all of the concerns that you were having with the people driving across the front apron. You're going to have the turning movements right in front of them. You know, that's certainly bringing up a lot more issues than it's solving.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but all right. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Fratelli, would you run through your outstanding?
Okay, just a scenario. If the building sits where it is, but heads back a little bit on the lot line, you got to bring it up forward. Up a little more. Good. So, is there any option of having 2 doors on the front of the building and then a couple doors on the side? A ladder truck in the front and coming out directly, and a pumper truck coming out directly, and then the ambulance and the rescue coming out the other side doors? Is that a feasibility?
I think that, predicates taking this building, this property first, which I think we've discussed a number of times is not a possibility around the table at this point.
Okay. Chief, I have a concern, and hopefully you can understand this. Is after all of this discussion, you're saying tonight to me that regardless if that building is there or not, the site is not going to work with the building up front. And that's just baffling to me. I mean, I don't know why that wasn't said a couple weeks ago.
Mr. Chairman, as far as to answer that question, the consideration is there for the building to be moved up onto the front part of the site. So it did not come across that time. So it works where the building is right now, how we have it laid out currently. So.
Okay. I just would have appreciated the fact that your comments would have been, listen, if that building is not there and the site is completely there, where would you put the building? In the back still? If that McDonald house was gone, where would you put the new firehouse? If we had a clear lot all the way from Main Street to the very end of the site, where is the ideal spot for that building?
I would say the ideal spot would be moving it slightly forward, maintaining the Bank of America parking, and giving a little bit of space on the back side of the building as a little bit of a buffer for use for the fire department. I'm not sure that there would be enough room there for parking and turning, because when you start talking about and this gets into an engineering issue, so I don't want to go down too far onto this because I'm outside of my knowledge base, but you're parking and you're turning for cars on the backside of the building, that would be limited. But the building could be moved up a little bit. But again, the Bank of America for the parking is still going to be a necessity on the site, and still have safe movement for the apparatus on the apparatus bay on the front part of the property, which is a concern. That's something why the design right now works, because it's a controlled area that the guys can make the turning movements in, walk through the parking lot, be able to access the equipment without having cars, coming by them. So the current plan does work for us and does do that.
But we still need Bank of America, regardless of whether the McDonald property is ours, vacant, or not, right?
I would say yes.
Wow, that's just mind-boggling. That actually the site doesn't work unless we have Bank of America, McDonald property there or not. Right?
For the configuration and to have the amount of parking that we need and have the site access and have the traffic movement on the site. Like I said, the current configuration is the optimal configuration.
Okay, thank you very much. All set, Mr. Chairman.
I think, Chief, to your
Thank
point, though, I think one of the biggest concerns as far as coming into the site, if you had sideways out, you're gonna have a significant conflict point between people who come to visit and the vehicles pulling out.
Okay, so let me go back to what we checked before. It still remains that Mr. Fowler and Mr. Battaglia, you would prefer not to vote on this evening. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And I'm still a little bit unclear. What between now and the next meeting, Mr. Battaglia, do you want from the petitioner?
I guess I'd like to have some time to swallow up what some of the information that we have received tonight, so I can make a valued decision in the near future.
So not necessarily you're looking for something, you just want more time to consider.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Fowler, is that the same for you?
That'd be a fair statement.
I'm sorry? Fair statement?
That would be a fair statement.
Okay, all right. So then we're not really leaving the petitioner with any particular marching order other than the ones that we discussed tonight to clean up on plans and whatnot. A couple of the members would like some more time to digest what's been discussed tonight and where we stand before they render a final decision. So I think it would be best to continue this to our next meeting. I know everybody's issues are important, and I know that everybody needs to get their things done. And I do appreciate everybody's efforts that, continued hearings to the 14th. I asked the other members their thoughts on this. You know, do we want to have this continue to the end of our next meeting? Or do we want this up front?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would ask this, even going forward. Is it possible, and maybe Mr. Sadwick or Anna could tell us, is it possible that we could have a meeting a week from now on this?
Yes, we can.
Do you mean a special meeting just for this item?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fowler asked for whether we could do that. Mr. Sadwick is, I believe, in the background saying yes.
Yeah, we can. We just need the 48 hours for open meeting notice.
All right.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, if I may, let's face it, Stephen, both Stevens. I'd rather, it's not going to take 2 weeks to digest what we've learned today and what picture has been painted here. Just some thought process, and that's it. So a week is enough time for me.
Mr. Fratalia, do you feel the same?
I do, yes, I agree.
Okay. I would suspect, though I would hope that I'm wrong, but I can't make any predictions, that we will still be a 4-member board for only a week from now, you know, as Mr. Delaney, you know, gets better. So that part I don't think will change, but I have no problem if we want to schedule this for a week from now and address this one item.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Would be fair to say we'd still be on doing the meeting such as we are now.
Correct.
Yeah. Mr. Delaney would probably be going home the day after tomorrow.
Okay, then we may.
That's what he said to me. That's what he said to me.
And we may see his shiny face. That would be good.
No, see it, yes, on TV. Yes, yes.
All right. So if that's the case, then we just need to make sure we get the information to Mr. Delaney so he can get himself up to speed as well.
And that's totally up to him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes,
may,
ma'am.
we still need to have a letter submitted for the land disturbance permit waiver that was requested.
I'm going to deal with that, I think, at the end. I think there's a way for us to take care of that. But can we just finish this one up and then we'll do that one? That's all right? Okay. I'm sorry, are you referring to this project's land disturbance permit or the one we were talking about from earlier?
I'm referring to this project one. We need that for our file before it's voted on.
Okay, very good. So we need to get that request in. I know we did ask this, at least I think I asked it at the last meeting. Do we have any other waiver requests that need to be submitted so we can get them all in?
I am not aware of any other waivers for this project. The project is a municipal building, so in terms of the rear setback and the dimensional height, it doesn't apply to this building.
Okay.
If this wasn't a municipal building, then they would need to get a waiver, but this is a municipal building, so for the record, that does not apply to a municipal building.
All right, so then if we could just get that in regarding the land disturbance permit prior to us coming back the next time, so that we can take care of that. I thought you were asking a different question. I apologize. So, all right, so if we're going to look to continue this to next Monday, that's fine. That's what everybody wants to do. Is that correct?
Yes, for me.
Okay. All right, so then we'll do the same. Will be the same time?
Steve?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. You know, to make this clear in our mind, if Lance could take what he showed us today, with the moving the building down along the lot line, and then doing the same traffic pattern, you know, the 50 scale, out of the station to show that it couldn't be done to go into the driveway. I'd like to see that. That's something he could do, I would think, expeditiously.
Yeah, but I do want to point out that you're going to you're asking to site a building on a property that's not owned and drive vehicles across an apron as well at the same time. You know, to me, that's not a very good layout. And the chief has said that making that right turn is not something that he's interested in. I just want to make that point.
So, Mr. Fowler, can I just step in for 1 second? That may be the case, Lance, but if you can just show it, put in those turn radiuses to show the problems you're talking about and why that is not a good design, I think that will alleviate, I believe, what Mr. Fowler is asking, is that he wants you to show him the problems that we just discussed. Is that accurate, Mr. Fowler?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Yes,
Mr. Chair, if I may, we will get together as a group and I'll make a point of addressing the issues Mr. Fowler brought forward and showing the layout that he is seeking. I will do the same for Mr. Fatalia's issues so we can address those better with the design team having something to bring forward for you to see. And in the meantime, over the next few days, I will talk to the owner of that property again and get more information on what eminent domain means. I'll try to address all the issues that were brought forward tonight.
All right. I think that would be ideal because I feel like, you know, everybody's had some good thoughts, but I think, you know, if we can have sort of the solid, this is why not, I think that will help alleviate everybody's concerns on a lot of those and let us move forward maybe to finishing this up.
Yep.
Or maybe not, we'll see. But hopefully.
Steve?
Yes, sir.
Steve, to you, Richard, is my thought of moving it to only a week away, leaving you with not enough time?
No, it's plenty of time. We'll get right on it.
Okay. All right.
Just talk priority, Bob. I understand your question. I understand what you're looking for.
Gotcha. Okay. 10-12.
So.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, so then we are looking for a motion to then continue this to a special meeting to be held on, what is Monday?
The 6th.
All right, so a special planning board meeting to be on April 6th. We'll address this one item at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to continue this to that?
So moved.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, motion carries. So we will pick this up on Monday in its special meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment, please.
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank Mr. Montori for all his help in trying to alleviate our concerns and efforts and questions on this project. You know, and I know it's not an easy thing to get resolved, but I think with the due diligence effort that we put together and trying to get together next Monday, I'd be willing to make a decision on that decision on Monday night at our meeting. So myself,
Oh,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so with that, we come to agenda item L, which is 1037 North Street, 1547 Andover Street et al. This hearing is also asking to be continued to the 13th. So can I have a motion to continue this matter to 7:40 on the 13th?
So moved.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right. So, gentlemen, before I run through those last couple of things, the old business, new business, Mr. Sadwick had something that I'd like him to bring up. It sort of folds into how we can get some of our business done going forward while we're in this remote setting. Mr. Sadwick?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with COVID-19 right now, there's been a lot of executive acts through the governor, and I think there's been at least one or two pieces of special legislation that have tried to assist municipalities. And one of the things that's been kind of hanging out there has been on the permitting side, as far as tolling and constructive grants and continuances and all of those types of issues. So I've been involved with a few other planners in tracking legislation as it's been kind of moving through the legislature. And right now, there is the governor's bill has passed the House this past Friday, and then today in the Senate it was approved, and now they have to go into conference. But as far as the permitting side is concerned, we're pretty clear as to what it looks like permitting is going to entail during the COVID emergency declaration. One of the items in there, though, that I wanted to just bring to the board's attention, and I know you guys are meeting now next Monday, so it's less urgent, but there was an item that allowed for the chairman of a permitting board to do continuances without a meeting or a quorum of the board. And if Brian could allow me to share screen, I'll just put up the language that I have so that everybody can see it. Thank you. And it basically, got to share that. Okay, so this is section 17B of that legislation, which is House docket 4598. But basically, you see here that upon a permit granting authority may, by a declaration of its chair, schedule or reschedule on one or more occasions the hearing or decision deadlines on a permit application, provided, however, that the chair may make such declaration whether or not a quorum is present to vote on such matter, provided further that no such date or deadline is rescheduled for more than 45 days after the termination of the state of emergency. So really, my thought was if the board would consider voting for this section, if it is enacted by the legislature and signed by the governor, we would be a few days ahead of the curve if we needed to continue or take action on permit application deadlines. So I wanted to put the language in front of you so that you could see it. And again, it would make everyone's life a little bit easier if you took action on it this evening. If you don't take action on it this evening, we can pick it up on a week from tonight, and hopefully the bill will be signed into law by that time.
I'll leave it to the members. I don't know what you guys want to do.
This is Eric. We've done the same thing. I think we've done for some of our meetings, and I think it's a necessary action in light of what's happening right now and may continue to happen for the foreseeable future. So I'm in favor of adopting it.
I concur, Mr. Chairman.
Is that a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. Yes, please. Make a well. I wanted for discussion first, Bob, but since that's a case, I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion made and seconded to approve using the language that Mr. Savard just showed us. That in the event that it is passed and put through by the legislature, that we're endorsing that, or adopting that language. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yes.
we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, seeing none, it's unanimous, and that passes. There was one other question I had, because I think this was brought up. Is there something else we needed to be able to do something where we're just signing
Yes.
plans and that kind of stuff with one signature?
Yes,
Okay, so what do we need for that?
that would also be a vote of the board to allow for the chair to sign or some other designated individual to sign on behalf of the board. Due to COVID-19, again, that was the assumption that you all weren't going to be in one meeting place at one time to sign something, or you couldn't make it in to sign something. We have a way of you guys signing with social distancing, but it may just be worth it to have a vote to allow for the chair to sign on behalf of the board during the state of emergency.
And again, that's just to, okay, but that's just to be one signature to cover what has been, the action that's been taken by the board, not in
Correct.
place of.
Correct.
So 4 people vote for it, 1 person signing for just those 4. The 5th person still said no, that's fine. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion for that. We have a
So
second.
moved.
All right, so we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I take one step back? Are we doing this where it's the chair that does it, or does someone else want to make it?
Chair.
Oh, okay.
The
All right.
chair.
All right. So we have a motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Okay. Is there any
I
other
have one
housekeeping that we
question,
need to
Mr.
take care
Chairman,
of?
on the stuff we just approved.
Yes,
Is
Mr. Frank.
it going to be a time constraint, Steve? Is that going to come off once the state is gone? State of
Correct.
emergency?
Correct. Once the state of emergency is lifted, we'll make it, I think Don is still on, but we'll make it so that the vote of the boards were tied to the state of the emergency and the legislation so that it was only in effect during that period of time.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you.
And Steve, is the chairman able to do electronic signature for 1325 Main Street, the one that we just approved tonight?
Yeah, I think we should be able to, staff-wise, I think, and after you do the decision, Alex should be able to print it off and Steve should be able to come in and sign it. Correct, Steve?
Yeah, I don't have a problem swinging in.
Yeah,
and just
I
signing
think
it.
we'll be okay there.
All right. So, but we wouldn't have to vote on that being electronic signature would be approved in this state of
Yeah,
emergency.
I don't think we need it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I just assume, unless I'm at death's door, knock on wood, that I'm going to sign this stuff in person. I mean, we're already taking everybody else's name off it. I just assume have an actual signature by at least someone. So unless there's some reason I can't come by town hall, I just assume swing in, sign what's got to be signed. I mean, at the rate with the way things are going, I don't know how many things will need to be signed anyways. As we go forward, we'll see how things turn out. But right now, I just assume have at least one real signature on those things. We've already tried to make it as easy as possible. I think I can get myself there.
Yep.
Sign things when it needs to be.
Makes sense.
All right, good. All right, so with that, any old business anyone wishes to discuss?
Nope.
None? Any new business?
Nope.
Nope. All right, correspondence. I didn't see any, so I think we're all set there. Town planners report?
None.
None? All right, gentlemen, I'd like to thank everybody for trying to make this work as best as possible. My apologies for having dropped off a couple of times myself. Hopefully we worked out some of the bugs, but I think this will at least help us, try to get the people's business done as best we can and not have everything backed up and land on our heads someday down the road when this all gets sorted out. So,
Mr. Chairman, just one comment. Can we
Yes, sir.
expand and get better at this process somehow? Because I know the
I do
general
hope so.
public is not understanding.
I
We
do
have a
hope
problem
so.
understanding people speaking during this process. The
Yeah.
general public probably has no idea what's going on here for the most part.
I did get a couple of texts during this. The quality of the sound was pretty bad. It was choppy. The biggest thing is people have to turn their mic to mute when you're not speaking. So I think if Steve, you did talk of that, I think just reiterating that if you're not speaking, put it to mute, and that will help and turn off any background. Some people are listening on their phone, also listening to the television. If you can do away with any multiple devices, that's going to be a huge help in the public listening to our voices as well as
I wanted to try not to interrupt too often, but I think in the future, I think I'm going to have to because I can hear keys being hit in the background, and like somebody was typing really angry. I think
know.
somewhere in there.
I felt bad for that keyboard.
So that was sort of tough. But yeah, I think I'll try to stop things going forward a little bit more often if there's a lot of background noise, and remind people to mute just to save us some of that background noise and try to help the listeners out there on what they're hearing. I mean, I'm sure if they hear a listener on the TV, they're probably better, but that background noise is just going to come through on there too. So hopefully we will get better at that, and we'll do a better job of muting. All right. Any other thoughts?
All set.
No.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Stay healthy, everyone. In the meantime,
We'll get back together on Monday.
absolutely.
All right. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. Good evening and thank you, everyone.
All right, gentlemen, ladies.